is a special presentation of ABC Sports. The preparations are nearly complete. They are ready for a stock car race like no other. The drivers and teams are the best there is. The tension is high, and that can cause conflict and errors. The competition is tight, close, and thrilling. 3 short races with 2 10-minute breaks. And on the line, a $1 million purse. This race requires total concentration and dedication. It stands alone. The run is open only to winners. The best NASCAR has to offer. Great champions like Richard Petty with 200 victories. Or Darrell Waltrip, the Daytona 500 winner, 3 wins this season. Or Dale Earnhardt, the current points leader, but there are no points to be earned today. Bill Elliott, the reigning Winston Cup champion, the Winston winner in 1986. Or Rusty Wallace, with 3 race wins this year. The top 20 drivers in the sport, all focused on the checkered flag. At the end of this day, it's $200,000 to the winner. From Charlotte Motor Speedway, it's the 5th annual running of the Winston. Live from Charlotte, Oldsmobile presents the Winston Stock Car Race. And that's the view that fans see when they come into the front of Charlotte Motor Speedway, a giant executive tower. It's all the brainchild of the president of the Speedway and top promoter in NASCAR, Humpy Wheeler. And inside that tower, among other things, the Speedway Club, where you can enjoy the racing on linen and crystal. A really magnificent development as part of this really unbelievable Charlotte Motor Speedway. And over 100,000 people are in the stands now, and they're here to see the Winston. Good afternoon. I'm Paul Page, and the excitement has already peaked here. They're looking forward to a full afternoon of racing. We've already seen 1 race and plenty of entertainment, but there's much more to come here from Charlotte, and a great deal more to come here on ABC Sports. When we're done with the Winston here, we'll send you out to Phoenix, Arizona for some boxing. It will be the IBF Featherweight Championship as Jorge Paez takes on Luis Espinoza. That'll come to you a little bit later as Paez defends his championship. Now here, we're concerned with the Winston, a stock car race, but a very special stock car race. Now, a very unusual format. It's actually 3 races this afternoon. A 3-race format, and the winner will take home at least $200,000. The first race is 75 laps, or a little over 112 miles. And the winner of that will take home $20,000, but also the finish of that determines the lineup for race number 2, which is 50 laps or 75 miles. And again, they will line up according to the finish of race number 2 for a 10-lap dash, and that race will bring home $200,000 to the winner. It's a very, very interesting concept. Now, with us to help call the action here today is 19-year veteran of Winston Cup racing and a competitor here in the Winston in 1987, Benny Parsons. Good to have you on board. This is a very unusual situation.
Paul, thank you very much. And it is unusual. Folks, this format, if we were to go to the garage area and talk to the 20 drivers in the Winston and ask them, do you like the format? I think the majority would say no. Let's throw the green flag, race for 150 miles, 200 miles, and the winner waves the checker flag over him, and he gets the $200,000. But this race isn't for the drivers or the crews. This race is for the fans. The over 100,000 people that are here today that bought a ticket to see this, and you at home that are going to watch this on television. This ought to be an exciting event. And when the day is over and Paul Page says, goodbye, thanks for joining in, if you don't grab the telephone and call someone and say, I just saw the doggonest thing I've ever seen in my life, then the format was not successful. But I think you will.
Well, there's no doubt about it. Benny Parsons is looking forward to a great one. Now, also with us is 3-time Indianapolis 500-mile race winner Bobby Unser. Bobby, 3 different races, 3 different distances. That requires some real special planning and some tactics.
It certainly does, Paul. The first race, 75 laps, and it's going to be a race where the drivers are going to be playing with each other, jockeying for position, seeing how the cars work, like drafting, like slipstreaming. Then a 10-minute break, and then the second race. This is 50 laps. Now here, the guys got to really get it up. They're really going to have to vie for positions. The guys in the back going to have to get up front. The guys in the front, of course, want to stay there. 10-minute intermission. After that, then 10 laps, the shootout. Winner takes $200,000. And on the front row, a Ford and a Chevrolet. Right behind them, a Pontiac. Paul, this could very well be the finest stock car race any of us have ever seen.
And $200,000 is more than enough to get the attention of any racing driver. Now, it's not only the race format that's unusual. The qualifying is unusual as well. Qualifying was held here at Charlotte yesterday. Now, in the qualifying, they run 3 laps against the clock, but they also have to make a pit stop during those 3 laps. Now, the fastest lap of the day was turned by this man, Bill Elliott. But when he came in for his pit stop, well, the crew got a little crossways. The pit stop ran just a little bit long with 14 and 65 1/100ths of a second, and that took his overall time down. So Elliott will start this race back in 9th place. Dale Earnhardt, the fastest crew in NASCAR, 4-time world champion pit crew, and they really demonstrated that fact yesterday as they came in with a pit stop at 13 and 21 1/100ths of a second, which helped some pretty good laps turned by Dale. He was, for a time being, at least, the pole sitter. But then it was Terry Labonte. He had some great laps. His laps were aided by this incredible stop at 11 and 45 1/100ths of a second. Look, even Junior Johnson is out there helping the crew, and as a result, he had the fastest overall time of the 3 laps, and that put him on the pole for the Winston. Starting alongside will be Dale Earnhardt. So we've got a real shootout. Ford and Chevrolet right on the front row. Let's go down now to the front row of this field. Here's Jack Arute.
And, Paul, we've talked about the performance of the drivers, the pit crews, and Bobby Unser alluded to the performance of the cars. This car here, owned by Junior Johnson and driven by Terry Labonte, this year is a Ford. Last year it was a Chevrolet. Now, who took over for the Chevrolet Brigade this year? Dale Earnhardt, driving a brand new car, the Lumina. The people have waited for a number of months to come into competition. It came 2 weeks ago in Talladega, Alabama, and you can see the sloped nose. It runs the air up and over. This will be driven by Dale Earnhardt, and he'll lead the Chevrolet Brigade. But if you look at the 2 cars in contrast, to my eye, they look an awful lot alike. And that's what's important when you're going for $200,000 on the nose. Paul?
Jack, certainly in the start of the first race, we're also going to be keeping an eye on a car starting back in the 9th starting position. It's that famous number 9 that belongs to Bill Elliott. And right now, near the car is Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul Page, you know, we talked about qualifying. Normally, if you're the fastest car in the field, you start up front where Jack Arute was a minute ago. But Bill Elliott will be starting back in 9th spot. Of course, the pit stop was a little bit slower than he'd like, but he will start his melling forward back here. Now, it's been an abysmal beginning for the season for Bill Elliott. Unlike a lot of champions, he has not had a good beginning to the year. He broke his wrist at Daytona prior to the main event. The champions this year are not having a good year. Danny Sullivan at Indianapolis before their biggest event of the year, and Bill Elliott before Daytona, a broken arm. Now, he would like to turn the season around. Today's showing here in the Winston could do that for Bill Elliott. He feels like he may have the fastest car in the field, and we'll see if he can make that move up front early on. Paul?
Thank you, Jerry. Well, I got to tell you, the drivers are getting ready. You can imagine there's a bit of tension there with $200,000, perhaps even more on the line to the winner. The crowd, well, they're pumped. Over 100,000 people, and they are ready for the running of the Winston. So the drivers have now been introduced. The cars are sitting on the pit road. They're ready to go, and we are ready to go racing. We'll be back right after this.
here.
They're going to throw to each other. We're back live at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the running of the Winston, the 5th annual. Giant crowd as they begin to clear away all of the paraphernalia used for the preliminary ceremonies. The drivers move toward their cars, and let's go to Jack Arute, who is with the pole sitter.
And Terry Labonte is strapping himself in the car. We are just moments away from the start of race number 1 in the Winston. Terry, when do you run for real? What do you hold back in these first couple of segments?
It doesn't count to the end. You know, the last 10 laps is the most important part. We'll just try to really figure out what we got to do for that last segment.
Flanking him on the outside of this front row is a driver that has really brought a lot of excitement into this race in years past. Who can forget the tremendous finish in one of the Winstons a while back when Dale Earnhardt passed in the grass to take the lead? Dale, are we going to see a lot of excitement today in this Winston?
Yeah, I checked out the turf down there. It looked pretty good coming across the grass. I think we'll be all right.
Paul, it's going to be a barn burner.
All right, so the front row is ready to go. Let's go a little further back in the field and Jerry Punch.
Well, the man who hopes to be a part of that barn burning, Paul, is here, Bill Elliott. And Bill, with the kind of beginning you had this year, you're hoping, I know, this race could turn your season around.
Well, I certainly hope so. You know, back in '86, we really started out tough with my brother Ernie being sick, and this race really turned things around that season. You know, the way things have gone this season, it's been a tough year. I feel good. I felt good at Talladega. I feel good in the race car right now. I think the car's working pretty good, and I just hope we have a good race.
He referred to 1986. He had not won a single event as he has this year. He came into the Winston, dominated the show, and went on to have one of the best years of his career after winning this Winston back 3 years ago. Paul?
So we'll definitely be tracking the activity of Bill Elliott. 20 cars on the straightaway now, ready for the start of the engines. Look at the magnificent crowd here at Charlotte. Let's take a tour around this course. Charlotte is one of the most challenging and demanding super speedways in NASCAR. At 1.5 miles around, 60 feet wide, and with its bank, it's plenty fast. It needs a lot of horsepower and top handling. Let's take a ride with Darrell Waltrip.
Okay, folks, hang on to your hats. Here we go. One time around the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We're coming down to get the green flag. And we're off to the races. Across the start-finish line. Dropper down low, going down there by the trolls. Out wide, down low into turn 1, bump. But down on the white line. Up the throttle. Car picks up speed, coming down to turn 2. Down the back straightaway. Bump. Super in low, going into 3. Down low. Drifts up. Pick up the throttle. Start off, bump. Right out next to that wall. Whammo! Pick up a little dust as you come to the trial roll. One lap around Charlotte Motor Speedway.
And they're sitting quiet, for the moment at least, as the 17 car of Darrell Waltrip. As he prepares to start this race, he'll start from the inside of the 3rd row. So the field now ready. The drivers are strapped in. They're in position. A final word with their crews. The tactics being reviewed again and again, and this is a very tactical event this afternoon. 3 different races. 75 laps the first race, 50 the second, and 10 the third. Temperature in the 80s now. Very warm down here. Humidity comfortable. Light winds. There's a chance of rain. Doesn't appear that it's going to come over the speedway. It looks like Humpy Wheeler has his good luck once again here at Charlotte with great weather. Jeff Bodine, a wink, a thumbs up. He's ready to go. As we're very, very close to the time to start engines. These are the makes of 20 cars that are in this field. Prepared to go, ready to run. Benny Parsons, those drivers have to be feeling a little bit of tension at this moment.
They do. And Sterling Marlin, let's don't forget about Sterling. Won the Winston Open just a few moments ago. Starts 20th, as he did last year. Last year he finished second, almost won it. We'll check and see if he can do it again this year.
The Winston is a race for winners. In the Speedway Club, well, they're still having lunch. A delightful facility here on the grounds, and you can see the sweep of the grandstand and the corporate hospitality and VIP suites. They have really been making some wonderful additions to Charlotte Motor Speedway in the past several years. It seems like every time you come back to the Speedway, it grows and grows and grows. Well, on the starting line, the crews are talking with Rusty Wallace as a little bit of a hesitation here while they clear off some of the equipment that was used for the preliminary ceremony. And what they have not far away from where the cars sit on the straightaway is a large semi-flatbed that was used in those preliminary ceremonies, and it's still sitting there. They can't seem to get it away. Let's go down to Jack Arute now. One of the cars in this race is very interesting, really running only for the second time in Winston Cup racing. Here's Jack.
Well, Paul, we talked about the Chevrolet Monte Carlo the last time we were here for last year's Winston. It was such a great vehicle and went to so many victories. Well, over a period of a year, they decided to come out with a new car. They named the car by way of computer, and the Chevrolet teams are lusting after it. The name of the car is the Lumina. Let's compare it to a Monte Carlo. This is the Monte Carlo. It had a winning run of over 83 victories, but Chevy teams lusted for the Lumina, and here's just a couple of reasons why. Overall, it's smaller than the Monte Carlo, and when you're hurtling through the air at speeds of over 170 miles per hour, the Lumina's got a built-in advantage over its older brother. Further refinements come in the frontal area. The nose and angles of attack have been refined after exhaustive wind tunnel and track testing. Air sweeps over the hood, roof, and trunk areas, increasing downforce, the sticking power of the car. Couple this with the horsepower generated by Chevy's time-proven engine package, and teams are banking upon the Lumina frequenting victory lane on a regular basis.
Well, there's the problem. It's this giant flatbed that they've now changed the tractors on, and they can't seem to get the back wheels unstuck, Manny.
The rear tire, the air brakes are on the brakes are on the rear of the trailer. The rear tires, the brakes are on, and they can't get the truck to roll, the trailer to roll. Now there it goes.
Get a little bit of a roll, but they finally get it done. There they go. The back wheels are rolling. So now, finally, we're pretty close to getting set to go. Boy, that's got to cause some real boiling of the pulses when that happens. There's the starting field. Let's go back to the main straightaway again. Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul, Alan Kowicki qualified fourth for this event, but yesterday a problem. In the last practice session, you blew the motor you were going to race, Alan, and you guys had to really scamper to put a new engine in. Are you concerned a little bit about this performance of this new motor?
Well, it's not the way you'd prefer to start the race, but this engine may be just as good as the other one, and I have a lot of confidence in the crew that, you know, they've got everything prepared, and we're looking forward to a good run.
Alan Kowicki starting fourth. Let's go up pit road to Jack Arute for those famous words. Jack?
Well, Jerry, I'm with Sam Hendricks, who's been chosen to give the traditional command today. Mr. Hendricks?
Gentlemen, start your engines.
And so on the main stretch here at Charlotte, the engines, 20 Winston Cup stock cars, begin to roar in what for some is a pinnacle day in the year, a very important day, certainly financially, a day that you wouldn't want to miss if you could avoid it.
No, and I tell you, I just looked down the entire field, and there's no panic going on, which means that 20 cars have started, no problem so far.
So everything's under control. Bobby Unser, the crews have to be thinking about exactly what their tactics are as they're ready to go in the start of this race. 20 drivers, the best that NASCAR has to offer. Let's look at the starting field. On the pole is Terry Labonte, the 1984 NASCAR champion and defending titleist of the Winston, alongside Dale Earnhardt, a three-time NASCAR champion and winner of the 87 Winston. In the second row on the inside, Rusty Wallace, who has won 7 of the last 14 NASCAR races, a streak that began here at Charlotte last October. Alongside Alan Kulwicki, he won the inaugural NASCAR race at Phoenix last year to gain his first start in the Winston. The third row, Jeff Bodine, winner of the 1986 Daytona 500. And alongside is Neil Bonnet, who won back-to-back World 600s here at Charlotte in 1982 and 83. The fourth row on the inside, Darrell Waltrip, a three-time NASCAR champion and winner of the inaugural Winston in 1985. To the outside is Davey Allison, who won at Talladega 2 weeks ago. This is his third start in the Winston. In the fifth row on the inside is Bill Elliott, who won the Winston in 1986. Twice a winner here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. To the outside is Greg Sachs, who won the 1985 Firecracker 400 at Daytona. The sixth row, Bobby Hillin Jr., NASCAR's second youngest race winner. He won the 86 Talladega 500. And on the outside is Lake Speed. He led for 13 laps in last year's Winston. The seventh row on the inside is Ricky Rudd, one of 7 drivers to compete in all 4 previous Winstons. Ken Schrader is to the outside. His only NASCAR victory came last year at Talladega. The eighth row on the inside is Harry Gant. His first Super Speedway triumph came here at Charlotte in 1982. Bill Parsons is outside. He won last year's Winston 500 at Talladega. The ninth row on the inside is Kyle Petty, the upset winner of the 1987 World 600 here at Charlotte. Morgan Shepherd is to the outside. His first win came at Martinsville in 1981. Richard Petty is on the inside of the 10th row. His first career win came in February of 1960 here in Charlotte at the old fairgrounds. And the outside of the 10th row, added just a few moments ago with his win in the Winston Open, is Sterling Marlin. He came into the Winston in exactly the same way last year, starting 20th, and last year he finished a very close second. You look back from the pace car as Terry Labonte forges his way up. There is Dale Earnhardt on the outside of the front row. You're looking out of a tiny peephole in the back of the pace car as the field works its way through the third turn. Everybody's rolling, all cars reporting that they're in good shape. They're ready to go running. Benny Parsons thinking about what's coming up, looking at the gauges.
I think they're all looking at the gauges. Right now, we're looking from inside Darrell Waltrip's car, the fellow that took us a lap around the Speedway just a moment ago. Right now, I think they're thinking about the money.
One of our several onboard cameras, Darrell Waltrip starting the fourth row, a little bit further back on board with Kyle Petty's car as he sees the field 8 rows ahead of him stringing out now. You can see the sweep of the giant grandstands, the condominiums on the outside of the first turn, aerial bombs being fired into the air now as balloons rise into the air. It's a magnificent spectacle as these 20 cars move around this circuit here at Charlotte. There go the balloons. The fans all on their feet. They're excited, ready to go racing. They may not sit down at any time this afternoon.
As I said a moment ago, this race is for the fans. Everything here is designed towards the fans. Yesterday afternoon, these 19 drivers signed autographs till 8 o'clock in Fan Appreciation Day.
You know, there was a lot of apprehension about that method of qualifying that we described earlier, but I got to tell you, sitting up here, it sure worked.
It was very, very exciting. Bill Elliott probably won't agree with today, but it was exciting.
This first race, 75 laps long. 1 pit stop is required with 2 tires to be changed during that pit stop. Then the finishing order of this race will be the lineup for race number 2, but 70 laps is the distance.
Paul, keep in mind they'll also have to put on some gasoline during that. They'll have to have a little bit of fuel. Probably 1 can of fuel during their first pit stop, and only pit stop.
The field in the fourth turn now. The front row aligns itself. The rest of the pack closes up just a bit. We watch for the green flag. Terry Labonte, the pole sitter, brings him down. Earnhardt sits back just a bit. The green flag comes out. Rusty Wallace makes a move to the inside. Labonte roars out in front as Wallace and Earnhardt begin a battle going into the first turn. Wallace comes up high, almost leaning on Earnhardt as Labonte continues to lead. Coming off of the second turn now. Lap number 1, the first race of the Winston.
Labonte leads down the backstretch. It's a race between Wallace and Earnhardt as they head into turn 3, and Earnhardt pushes ahead into second place.
Well, it certainly looks like Labonte had the horsepower at the start, Paul. They came down nice and slow, nice and even. Now look at Earnhardt, though.
Earnhardt comes down in across the grass, a little bump to Labonte, as very early on Earnhardt says, I want to win this thing, I want to take it all home, and Earnhardt goes into the lead. Rusty Wallace comes down on the inside. Alan Kulwicki closes in there as well. They're on the backstretch already. Earnhardt is still out in front as Kulwicki pulls up to battle alongside of Labonte.
Labonte made just a little bit of a slip in right now. He's battling for third spot and losing it. And here comes Bodine trying to take the lead on the inside.
Jeff Bodine closes on the inside of Labonte as Earnhardt, followed by Wallace, comes across the stripe, completing lap number 2.
And Darrell Waltrip following Jeff Bodine.
On board now with Darrell Waltrip. That's Bodine just ahead. Working their way around the speedway. Waltrip running in 5th place. Bodine in 4th. The fight is for 4th place. Waltrip's going to try it down to the inside. He tucks that car a little tighter, going into 3.
There we see Darrell working the steering wheel, trying to keep the back end in tow.
The whole front of the field staying together as they come across, completing lap 3 of 75. Waltrip, Bodine, battle. Labonte has dropped back now. We go back to the front of the field. Rusty Wallace at the back end of Earnhardt's car.
Rusty Wallace looks to me like Bobby Unser. He wants to lead, don't you think?
Well, Rusty's got to be very quick. He's been very fast for a long time. And if the cars come head on into you, you can look at the difference between the new Chevrolet Luna and the Pontiac.
And the yellow caution comes out. A car spinning way up in the 4th turn.
That's Kyle Petty.
Kyle Petty. It looked like Richard also was involved in that situation, so the family Petty bring out the caution. There's Richard.
Doesn't appear to be any damage on Richard's car. I think he just simply spun to avoid. We see some right on the bottom of the front skirt, but
heavy damage to Kyle Petty's car. The whole front end bashed in, and the caution comes out. The crowd cheers as Richard gets underway, but Kyle Petty still sitting in the car. 4 laps complete, and the caution comes out. Now we've got a new rule working in NASCAR today, and that is a yellow flag rule. They close the pits now. There is the flag that says the pits are closed. They will stay closed until the pace car picks up the field, and then they should yank that flag out of the way. They've done it. Now, if they care to pit, they can come in. It's a test here today. If it works, then it will become a regular practice in Winston Cup racing.
Paul, it's too early for most of them to pit. Now, there's Bodine coming in. He obviously has some sort of an adjustment to make. But usually they're not going to pit this early because they really need fuel a little bit later on, not quite this early.
Jeff Bodine was running in 4th, rolled out. They work on Kyle Petty's car. Benny, here's the situation.
We see Kyle Petty. He's already sideways and already made hit the outside retaining wall, so we really can't see what happened to start the crash. Ugh, terrible looking crash. Front of the car heavily damaged. I was talking. There we see the crew trying to get Kyle out of the car.
All right, so as the rescue crews work with Kyle Petty, the race is under caution. 4 laps are complete, and we'll be back with more of the Winston after this.
It's the last car they had.
have time to elaborate on that. Good. I thought losing that monitor was especially exciting. I thought it was better to race up here for a few minutes. That's 2. On 3, you're the one trying to go. No? How are we going to score this?
They're not doing all that for the fun of it.
Well, we're back at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We're under the caution with 6 laps of the first 75-lap race complete. And you can see the rescuers are still at the car of Kyle Petty, involved in an accident on the 4th turn. They've called for splints and neck braces for Kyle. They're taking their time. They don't want to rush anything here. Want to take him out of the car nice and slow. Now, the situation that created this situation, here you are on board with Kyle.
This is going down the front straightaway. We've just passed the start-finish line. We're a half lap away from the problem. He's following Morgan Shepherds through 1 and 2. Car looks fine. No problem. Handling very well on the bottom of the racetrack. He moves back up.
Running down the backstretch.
Going down the back straightaway, going in turn 3. And then all of a sudden, it's like he got tapped, and he corrects the car, and the camera goes away with that heavy blow.
You can see the car hit so hard that the camera damaged as well.
When you see it come back to the right and just head towards the wall, that's about the worst kind of hit that you can have, Paul. And that's what you can see on the car. The left front corner just moved right back in, so obviously some of it got back into the cockpit.
Part of the continuing bad luck for Kyle Petty, a crash in the Daytona 125-mile qualifier, didn't qualify for the Richmond 400, crashed at Darlington, crashed at Talladega. Back on board once again. We slow this one down just a little bit.
Now we're going into turn 3. Now you watch. The car will pivot one way, a little bit to the right now. He'll correct, and it'll swing back to the left. That's the worst kind of spin you can ever do, almost straight into the wall. Worst way that you could possibly hit it, Benny.
And that's something that you young drivers, when you go to a big racetrack for the first time, you cannot correct these cars on a high bank racetrack. When you get out of shape, they're going to go back to the right and hit the outside retaining wall.
Richard Petty also involved. He spun but is back under power. Let's go to his pits now. Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul, take a look at the damage of the Petty Pontiac. This is the front air dam, or what's left of the front air dam that came off Richard Petty's car. Now, this is just part of it that was peeled away when he tagged Kyle, his young son, up there in turns 3 and 4. Richard will have a significant aerodynamic problem driving the Pontiac. And another driver here in the pits, pitting right beside Richard, we just told a minute ago that has a problem, is our leader, Dale Earnhardt. We are told he has a flat right front tire, and he, running over some debris up there, probably some of this air dam off the Petty car, has cut a right front tire, so he will be making an unscheduled stop as well. Paul?
Well, they've got a long yellow underway here now, still working with the Petty car. There is Dale Earnhardt, as just as Jerry Punch suggested, he peels off and heads down now toward Richard Childress, the crew. See what assistance they can be. It should be just as simple as a new tire.
Well, that's exactly all he needs is a right front tire. There we see Kyle Petty being taken from the car.
Very, very careful with him. There's no hurry. It's not like the old days where they used to run up to a car and just snatch somebody out of there. Now, with all the modern medicine and emergency care, they want to be plenty careful to get them out plenty of time. Nice and easy. Don't want to cause any more damage than the accident may have already caused. A lot of
He's
concern
come a
here
long
for
way
Kyle.
in automobile racing, Paul. It's a lot better than it used to be. You can just tell by all the attention he gets and how careful. They have doctors on duty all the time, right with the drivers.
Well, Kyle Petty now out of the car as they take a moment with him. Let's look at this accident one more time, Benny Parsons.
There we see both the Pettys, Richard and Kyle, sideways. Kyle has already collected the wall. What caused the problem to begin with, we have no idea. We see the windshield just on the left of the screen bouncing along.
And Richard was right behind Kyle when it started and got involved in it. Looked like the back end just came unstuck on Kyle Petty's car. And when he tried to correct it, it took him right up into the wall. So under the caution with 8 laps complete, here's your top 5. We'll be back. right after this. Pit guys, you may want to check to see if Richard hit Kyle. For the way it looks, we don't have it on video. The circumstance looks that way. Yeah, I wouldn't want to see it here if it was one of the pit crews. Richard or Kyle.
Damage to that bit. I was talking to the owner of the car yesterday about it. Last car, the front car line. Even if Kyle is up, he'll do that.
We're back live at Charlotte Motor Speedway as Oldsmobile presents the Winston. We are under caution, 9 laps complete. Reason for the caution, an accident involving Kyle and Richard Petty. Though Richard Petty is back under power, Kyle had to be removed by stretcher to an ambulance from his race car. He's now back in the medical center as the ambulance backs in. Let's go for an update on this situation to Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul, the bad news is, taking a look at the hood beside me here, this is the car that Kyle Petty destroyed on Monday here in practice. It was their Speedway car. The car he just wrecked a minute ago is the only car they had left. And so both of the cars they have in the Sabatis Racing stable have been destroyed. The good news is that Kyle Petty was talking to his crew a minute ago on the two-way radio while they were getting him out of the car, said, hey, I got a little pain in my back, some pain in my right shoulder, but I'm okay, I'm awake and alert, and I'm sorry about the race car, guys. They said, don't worry about it, Kyle. We can build more cars. You just be okay and come back to the garage. Paul?
Well, good report. The problem, though, is the car, Benny Parsons.
That is exactly right. As Jerry Punch mentioned, the only car they have. What they're going to run next week in the Coca-Cola 600, your guess is as good as mine.
Pace car. Now, as we take a look at the rundown, moving on to the backstretch, indications are that we will go green at the conclusion of this lap and resume the first race of the 3-race series that is the Winston. All 3 run in an afternoon, 75 laps. They must pit, must change 2 tires during the 75-lap run. Then a 10-minute break, then back for 50 laps, then a 10-minute break, and then back for 10 laps on board with Darrell Walter.
Right now, Paul, we're looking at Pontiac and Ford. It's going to be interesting to see how this works. Rusty Wallace is really working good. Another thing that we got to remember is Dale Earnhardt is back in the pack a little ways because of that flat tire that he had.
It'll be Rusty Wallace, then Kulwicki, then Earnhardt, then Waltrip, then Labonte. As they come back to the line, Davey Allison has been able to move up into 5th place as well as we come back to green. And Waltrip immediately starts to work at the back end of Kulwicki's car.
Well, Rusty Wallace jumped right out in the front. He's really a hot number these days. If he has his way, he's going to lead every lap, staying clean air with the exception of possibly Laverick's cars today.
If there's been major stories this year in Winston Cup racing, and there has, those 3 cars in front, that's the story. Rusty Wallace, Alan Kulwicki, and Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip and Rusty Wallace won 3 races apiece. Alan Kulwicki hasn't won a race, but he's right there knocking on the door each and every race.
And Darrell Waltrip's really been on a comeback this year, hasn't he, Ben?
He is determined this year, 1989, to be the year that Darrell Waltrip shows everyone he is a great race car driver and could come back and win.
First three positions, there is Earnhardt, who had to move to the back of the field to come up through the field. He was back on 19th position when they came to the restart. He's already up to 14th and cutting his way through as he comes alongside Jeff Bodine.
Just moved alongside Jeff Bodine easily. Earnhardt looks awfully strong today.
Well, that tire that was a problem for Earnhardt took him off of the lead and put him well back in the field, now replaced. It obviously was the tire because the car is really running well now. To the backstretch, Wallace, Kulwicki, Waltrip. 13 laps complete, 75 the scheduled distance. The battle is for second. Kulwicki has played a very, very smart race, and his crew really helped him out, and is now running in second place.
The smart drivers right now, this early in the race, are going to be taking care of their tires, Paul, because remember, this race is when they're going to kind of have to position themselves for this next 50 lapper coming up. It's going to be really important who starts up in front.
Rusty Wallace getting around this track at 168.2 miles an hour on the last lap. Second and third right in there and following.
That's strong speed, very strong speed under green flag conditions after 10, 15 laps of the race.
Doesn't seem like the accident in turn 4 caused any problems with the track surface, so turn 4 can be a problem area here. Back at the front of the field, Wallace now with Kulwicki closing. First, second, and third running together now. Wallace begins again to pull away. Here's the fight for fourth place. Labonte, Allison, Elliott running together on the backstretch.
Well, there's some good drivers right there, Vinny.
There's some very good race car drivers. Bill Elliott, in-car camera pulls up right behind Davey Allison. Looks to the outside. Follows Davey down the front straightaway. Looks on the inside. Maybe he's going to make his move. No, has to fall back in behind.
You can already see how much dirt and debris are on the windshield. Now, this is only after approximately 15, 16 laps of the race.
You see a crack in Bill Elliott's windshield running up to the right side of our screen. He's on the outside of Allison. Davey on the inside of Labonte.
The fight is for fourth place as Davey moves into fourth. Now Labonte comes right back. Labonte closes in. Elliott closes in. The fight continues, coming down to the start-finish line.
Now that's as close as you can get, Paul. You can't get much closer than that without touching.
I'm telling you, man, I think they might have touched up in the fourth corner. Bill Elliott now once again pulls in right behind Terry Labonte. Tries to get inside as he comes off the second corner.
On the backstretch, Greg Sachs is right in there as well. As Elliott comes to the inside of Labonte, Sachs tries to follow through, but Labonte pulls right down and takes a position. Elliott runs now in fifth place.
Now,
back at the front of the field.
Fifth place is not bad right now, Paul. We're still fairly early in the race. There's the race right there now.
Greg Sachs moves to the inside.
Just
behind him, Ken Schrader.
And Ricky Rudd in the green 26. That's Rudd on the outside of Schrader trying to take that spot away.
Kenny Schrader, probably one of the most versatile race drivers that we have here in the Winston race. Don't you agree with that, Benny?
Yes, because he runs champ dirt cars, midget cars, modified cars. If it's got a steering wheel and four wheels, Schrader will drive it.
And some people think he's too big to get the midget, but by golly, he does a good job.
And wins in those other races as well. Here, he's going to try on the inside of Labonte.
Schrader, the center of attention as he tries to take sixth place away from Terry Labonte. Greg Sachs lies just ahead. Ricky Rudd just behind. The battle is between Labonte and Schrader. On the backstretch, can Schrader hold in here? They head into three, and Schrader pushes his way ahead.
Labonte, our pole winner, drifted back, having some serious problems early on in this race. Now we go back to the lead. Rusty Wallace still leading. Alan Kulwicki second place. But Kulwicki, Paul, has closed up.
20 laps are complete. Kulwicki sitting just behind Wallace. Is this a situation where a very cagey Kulwicki is just watching what Wallace is doing?
Oh, yeah, like Bobby has said, I don't think right now is the time to go up and take any kind of chances. Now's the time to watch, feel how your car's doing, how your competitor's doing, getting yourself in position, Bobby, for that next race.
Absolutely right, Benny. And another thing, Kulwicki's going to like Rusty when they do start lapping cars, kind of moving out of the way and making it easier for him to come by. Give him a little bit less chance of having any accidents or traffic problems.
Waltrip is in there as well as we take a look at the top five with 21 laps complete. Wallace, Kulwicki, Waltrip, Davey Allison, Bill Elliott. Good battle all up and down through the top 10. as Waldrop closes in, and there is Earnhardt as he comes past Labonte and picks up 8th place. So from 19th to 8th since the caution, Earnhardt wants to get back up front and fight.
Now remember, that's that new Lumina Chevrolet, and this is the second race on it. They haven't had all that much luck with it the first time, but it's obviously getting a little bit better because Earnhardt is on the move.
The question about these cars was whether or not they had enough test time on them, enough race time, only one race before this. Earnhardt is certainly proving that he knows how his car is working as he moves his way up through the field.
Here we see Waltrip has looked inside Kowicki going in turn 3. Now again trying desperately to get by Kowicki. He pulls alongside.
That's what you call splitting the hair kind of close. It looks like he might have got underneath. He did. He got by. Waltrip now is in second place. Now that's some dicing. That pass could be just a little bit of knowledge to be used in the next race.
Exactly right, because Darrell Waltrip would not try to do that unless he felt like he was going to help him somewhere along the line.
Unless that's just the new Darrell Waltrip we see. It's like when he was a kid, Benny. He's just going to go for broke all the way.
You know something, Bobby? You might be right. This might be the new Darrell Waltrip stepping forward.
The second place car, number 17, Darrell Waldrop. Alan Kowicki just behind him, riding in third. We talked at the start of the show about the tactics of this race, but it is very, very important to get up and be in the front because that gives you a better starting position in the next race.
Oh, exactly right. Terry Labonte, our pole winner, as we mentioned a moment ago, he's drifting back, Paul. He's getting himself he's getting himself in trouble for the next race.
But at least he's got time enough and some long pit stops, like 10 minutes in between the races, Benny, to readjust the car, get it back in, be competitive.
And Jack Arute, you have a comment.
Well, Paul, you know, this is the only race on the Winston Cup Tour where there's a preliminary event. And that, of course, was the Winston Invitational. And a lot of these teams checked on tires and how the cars handle, checked with some of their compatriots. And the front 3 cars is kind of interesting. 2 of them made adjustments. Darrell Waltrip and the other car, of course, being the number 7 of Alan Kowicki, they decided to tighten their cars up after the Winston Open. Your leader, however, he checked on tires, checked with Rick Wilson specifically, and they determined to keep their car in the same setup that they ran yesterday. The big difference today is about 20 degrees in temperature. So his car is working very well, that of Rusty Wallace, but so is Waltrip's and of course, Kowicki. So it's a toss-up as far as setup right now.
And there we see Greg Sachs. This is a race for 5th. He passes Bill Elliott, takes that spot away, and here comes Schrader on the inside. He takes the spot away, moves Bill Elliott back to 7th spot.
On board with Bill Elliott. This kind of fighting at 27 laps into the race gives you an idea of how very important these guys think it is to get up into the front.
They can't give up any ground, Paul. They have to go for it. They're just running a little bit harder this early in the first race. There goes Schrader.
The fight is for 5th place. That's Greg Sachs just ahead. Kenny Schrader tries him on the inside.
They're running a little bit harder earlier in the race, the first race, than we figured.
Wow, that was close race, and Schrader almost got in the side of Sachs as they came off the corner.
Sachs forced way high as Elliott sitting just behind Sachs, and here comes Earnhardt. Earnhardt closes in on this fight.
Now there's a good example. 2 cars teaming up, nose and tail, can just almost beat Schrader, who's really in the groove right now. Schrader's handling good. But you notice as soon as Elliott hooked up the Sachs, it just seemed to have a little bit of straightaway speed on it there.
5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Remember, Earnhardt came out of the caution in 19th. Earnhardt brings her down low. Elliott goes way up high, and Earnhardt picks up yet another position. Now sets his target on Sachs.
He just drove by Bill Elliott. Boy, is Earnhardt doing a great job on the bottom of the racetrack up in 3 and 4.
We have to say the Chevrolet Lumina is definitely handling better than it was before. Danny, don't you agree?
I agree wholeheartedly. I felt like that the Lumina, they might have some problems here today. I haven't seen any so far.
At least no question about it on Dale Earnhardt's car is on the backstretch now. We take a look at the top 5 at Earnhardt. Sets himself up behind Greg Sachs. Sachs goes up high. The battle is for 6th. Earnhardt comes to the low side, decides to drop in behind Sachs. Now he comes down, almost uses a little bit of that dirt that he loves here.
Well, I think the thing about the number 3 car, that Lumina Chevrolet of Earnhardt, is it's working on the bottom. That's the easiest place to pass. As we were talking earlier, as the tires get hot, if the track gets slippery, the cars go to the top. When you see Earnhardt sticking at the bottom, the guys like Rusty Wallace up front better start worrying.
Rusty Wallace still leads it. The battle we're watching is that for 6th place between Greg Sachs and Dale Earnhardt. Out in front, it is still Rusty Wallace. Waltrip closes in just a bit. Rusty Wallace on the backstretch, runs in front of this field. You know, there have been some rumors about Rusty Wallace moving to another team, so we ask him what his plans really are.
The rumors, they started really going wild. The latest one was I was going to drive, Richard Petty was going to retire, and I was going to drive for him. I'm going to drive for Junior Johnson. I tell you, the press had me driving for everybody, and there's just no truth to it. And yesterday in Charlotte, I called a press conference and try to put it all to rest, because it's not disruptive to our team yet, but it does have the high potential to do that. And I don't want to let it get out of control before something like that happens. 2 big races at Charlotte, 3 big races at Charlotte, and the whole Winston Cup year is yet to go. And I can't believe the rumors are starting this high, this early. It's just been a lot of sports writers start dreaming their own stuff up because they couldn't find anything for fact. They just thought it was going to happen. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not going to happen. I'm real happy where I am. Myself, Barry Dodson, Harold Elliott, Jimmy Makar, the whole Blue Max crew, we plan on staying together as a team.
Well, you know, it seems to me that the bigger the race, the more the rumors fly, which may tell you the Winston's a pretty big deal.
It is a big deal, and that's one thing I think that people are trying to do is disrupt that team just a little bit. Because Rusty Wallace this year, Paul and Bobby, I've been following the Winston Cup Series closely this year. That car 27 has been almost unbeatable.
That's right, Benny, and he's also on a hot streak. You know, there's sometimes when you take a car owner and the team, the sponsor, and everybody works together. And that's what really makes a successful team out of it.
That's exactly right. Labonte, our pole sitter, we just can't even find him. There's 4th, 5th, 6th.
Labonte's fallen all the way back to 11th place. There he is right now. And that's Sterling Marlin just behind him. So Labonte, who had such a great day yesterday, is now falling back through the field. We can get an update from Jerry Punch.
Well, gentlemen, the weather has changed drastically today from what they had yesterday and Friday for practice and qualifying. It's considerably warmer, so a lot of crews had to guess just before this race to change the setup. As you heard Jack Arute mention a little bit ago, a number of teams made the cars a little bit tighter. Well, Junior Johnson's team made the car significantly tighter, and that's the problem with Terry Labonte. The car is so tight, he just can't get up any speed and can't run through the corners. They will make that adjustment during that first intermission, but right now, he has to grin and bear it. Paul?
Labonte runs in 11th. That's Marlin just behind him. Ricky Rudd back in 12th.
Now, to the folks that don't understand what tight means that the front end is pushing and just not turning in the turns, and that slows them down a little bit.
Here's how the Winston pole winners have fared in the run of this race as we watch the action in the upper right-hand corner. As Earnhardt makes his move around Allison and picks up 5th place, so he continues to cut his way through the field.
That's pretty impressive. Started 19th, he's now 5th in just about 30 laps. Pretty impressive.
But when you consider that graphic, the pole winners aren't the favorites here.
You doggone right they aren't.
He's using up a lot of tires, don't you think, Benny? And he's really running that car hard because he had to come all the way from the back end, and here he is, almost up near the lead now.
Well, see, I don't think he would do that in a 600-mile race, but he's going to stop. They're going to stop at the end of 75 laps, and they're going to be able to change 4 tires.
Dale Earnhardt, Rookie of the Year in 1979, and then turned around 1 year later to come back as the Winston Cup champion. It's the kind of style that brought him to the championship. One tough customer on a race course, and currently running in 5th place. It's still Rusty Wallace out in front of the field, followed by Waltrip and Kulwicki. Across the stripe, 39 laps of 75 are complete. There's the 27 car, the Pontiac of Rusty Wallace. He's out in front of the field, followed by Waltrip, Kulwicki, Schrader, and then Dale Earnhardt. We'll be back with more The Winston in a moment.
Tell you what, Ken Schrader's running awfully good. He's passed a bunch of the guys to get up to 4th spot.
Yeah, he's running really good. Yeah. In fact, he's absolutely closing a little bit now.
Looks like he might be.
Yeah. If you guys could turn a route up us a little bit. Yeah, he's been too high.
That's as high as he can go. They'd have to turn our background down.
If you guys could turn our background down, then we could turn the route up.
Hold it so I don't spill.
Earnhardt's one tough, stubborn customer.
He's tough, Bobby. He really is tough.
Okay.
50, 60, 60.
You guys may want to talk about the Jericho.
Talk about what?
Second and a quarter.
Just a little bit straighter is.
We're back live at Charlotte Motor Speedway, the first race of the three-race series that is the Winston, all to be run in one afternoon. 43 laps are complete. We take a look at the top five: Wallace, Waltrip, Kowicki, Schrader, Dale Earnhardt. Take a look down through the rest of the top 10. Allison, Greg Sachs, Phil Elliott, Jeff Bodine, and Sterling Marlin. Marlin, remember, started in 20th place, so he's got a pretty good run going as well. Rusty Wallace out in front of this field. Car really doing a nice job. The fight is here for second place. That's Darrell Waltrip and Alan Kowicki.
They've really been having a fight for a long time. Just a real good, tight battle right there. Rusty Wallace has been really handling good, Paul. He's not only running good, but he keeps the stick at the bottom of the racetrack awfully good.
There we see Richard Petty in jeopardy of going a lap down, but we know that Richard's car is not handling very well because of that early accident with his son, Kyle.
Front spoiler all banged up and damaged. His aerodynamics really compromised. Take a look at the left front of that car. You see whole bodywork missing. That really makes a world of difference.
In NASCAR racing, stock car racing, the left front does an awful lot of work because they offset the weight into the car. So when he loses the spoiler on the left front like that, it's really hurting the car. That's not letting it turn, or it's making the front end push.
One or the other. As we watch Richard Petty going down in turn one, just in front of her leader.
Richard Petty, the leader just behind him. And Rusty Wallace, by the way, running about a second and a quarter ahead of this battle for second place. 29 laps to go, 46 are complete. The scheduled distance to the stops, Benny Parsons, should be about 60 laps.
Someplace between 55 and 60. These cars will run as long as they possibly can because they're handling very well. Some of the cars in the back want to get in and make that power change, so they might even stop at 50 laps.
Notice Kowicki is running off to the left up there a little bit now. He's trying to do two things. Trying to get some air in, fuel his radiator. I think, Benny, don't you agree he might be trying to pull Darrell down so he can make his front end push a little bit, maybe burn his right front tire off?
I don't know that he is. I think that Alan just is trying to run on the bottom of the racetrack the shortest way, as you mentioned a moment ago, just the shortest way around the racetrack. You see how low that Kowicki, well, now he's drifted up a little bit there, but he's still lower than anyone else through the third, fourth corner.
But Kowicki closes in a little bit on Earnhardt. Rusty Wallace still out in front. The fight on the course is for second place.
And this is what Alan Kowicki has been doing all year, is he runs very well. The longer that the race goes, the better Alan Kowicki goes.
Let's go down to the pits now, get an update on the situation with Kyle Petty. Here's Jerry Punch.
I'm standing with Felix Sabates, Kyle Petty's car owner. And Felix, you just came out of the infield care center. What's the status on Kyle?
Well, we're taking him to the hospital for precautionary measurement. Everything seems to be working all right. He was complaining of a lot of pain in his back going to the top of his head. But Dr. Petty said he thinks he's okay. He goes to University Hospital for x-rays.
Well, apparently going to do cervical spine films and x-ray, also the right shoulder, but hopefully it's just bruised and nothing broken, and Kyle can come back to race. Paul?
We certainly hope the best for Kyle Petty, the leader, the 27 car. Rusty Wallace. He's competed in 2 different Winstons prior to this. He was 5th in '87 and finished 13th last year, but now in the first of the 3 races, he is now running out in front. Kenny Schrader has made a pit stop, completed it in 12.3 seconds, and is back into the action. So what you suggested earlier, Bobby and Benny, the guys running a little bit back, stopping a little bit earlier.
Well, he might have needed a chassis adjustment. They can make a little adjustment when he's into the pit. And he might have just gambled that there won't be a yellow between now and the 55 to 60 laps that they should stop. Decided to make his change right there.
Well, he better hope that they won't, because he did go a lap down in making that pit stop. And if the caution flag should come out right now, Ken Schrader would be a lap down for sure.
The 2/3 of this first race now complete. Again, the format is a 75-lap race. We're in that now, 2/3 of the way done. They have to make a pit stop for 2 tires at some time during this race. And another rule special to the Winston, should there be a yellow flag in the last 10 laps of any one of these races, then the laps under yellow will not count into the total. They go from this race on to a 50 lap after a 10-minute break, and then after a second 10-minute break on to a 10-lap dash. And at the end of that run, $200,000 to the winner. Greg Sachs, the 88 car. Davey Allison is in 5th place as Sachs and Bodine begin to pursue Allison.
Good race for 5th spot. Greg Sachs, the graphic tells you, 6th spot. Jeff Bodine 7th, right behind.
Now, Bodine's in another one of those Chevy Luminas. Benny, he doesn't seem to be handling quite as good as, for example, Earnhardt in the very light car.
I think, I noticed that just a moment ago and started to say something, but to tell one of our guys down in the pits that Bodine is not handling that well. And he's the only car other than Earnhardt that made a pit stop on that early caution flag. He went in the pits. He wasn't happy with the first lap, and evidently still not very happy.
And Benny, we watched yesterday. It looked like Bodine was the best of the cars that we watched on the entire racetrack.
Exactly right.
And we get a little puff of tire smoke coming off the back of Allison's car as he heads into 1. That's the second lap we've seen that. As we watch Allison on the backstretch, heading into turn 3, here is Rusty Wallace, the leader of the race, coming in. Darrell Waltrip comes in as well, and Alan Kulwicki comes in. So the top 3 cars head for the pits. Now only 17 and 27. Only Wallace and Waltrip make it into the pits.
11 seconds. Wow. 11 seconds. Wow, what a pit stop by Rusty Wallace.
Now, it's going to be interesting to see if they got all the luck nuts on that one. Some of the cars missed yesterday, but I'm sure they did.
So Rusty Wallace comes back out of the pits. There's Earnhardt, and Alan Kulwicki comes in as well as Earnhardt now. So here at 54 laps complete, everybody decides it's time in.
Earnhardt has already stopped and changed some tires, but he comes in. All the cars on pit road. We see Earnhardt's car, the jack's going up. Davey Smith runs around, gives Kurt Schoenstein the right front tire. He gets the wrench. Jack down at Earnhardt, gets away.
Now what they were doing right there is cleaning off his radiator from the hot dog wrappings, things like that, to get on the racetrack. Sometimes they get caught on the radiator, they'll burn the engine right down.
Earnhardt's pit stop just a shade under 12 seconds. A good stop for Richard Childress's crew.
I'll tell you what, we're seeing some great times on the stops for this. Fans here have seen a lot of great pit action this weekend. And Lake Speed, the 83 car, picks up the lead. He has not yet pitted. The Lake Speed, by staying out, takes the lead of the first race in the Winston. The leaders have now made their stops, and it should be a sprint to the finish. We'll be back with more of the first race of the Winston after this.
Didn't stop. Finally stopped. stayed out, Mike? Bonnet, who else? Who else stayed out? Somebody's mic open. Right arm, a legacy of a bad crash he had here 10 days ago. Speaking of crashes, I know none have been as severe here as Kyle Petty's down in Charlotte. We hope he will recover soon. But several rookies have been involved. It's just an indication of how tense things really are here in Indianapolis. The field has been filled. Bumping has begun. And Paul, it is going to be a long, very dramatic afternoon. Back to you.
Thank you, Sam Posey. Of course, the good news is that Kyle Petty is not seriously injured, though they're going to send him into the hospital for a little extra look. Lake Speed made his stop while we were away, and as a result, the race goes back to Rusty Wallace. He is running with 13 laps to go.
He's trying to put a lap on the 75 car, Morgan Shepherd. That's the car right in front of him. And right behind him, or a few car lengths behind him, is Darrell Waltrip. And Darrell came out of the pit stops in second spot as Wallace goes alongside Morgan Shepherd and does put him a lap down coming off the second corner.
So Wallace on the backstretch. Alan Kulwicki had a problem when he came in for his stop. He came in real hot, locked the brakes up, blew a tire. The stop went long. It went to almost 25 seconds. So Wallace is out in front. Waltrip is in second place, and Ken Schrader runs in third.
Now remember, Paul, the 75 car, they just got lapped, is going to carry that lap behind them into the next race. That's something that's really going to hurt the drivers here. They get down a lap.
That's why it's so important toward the end of this 75-lapper to try and get up to the front. Gives you a much better starting position for the second of the three races, the 50-lapper. Rusty Wallace out in front of this field, running smooth. Darrell Waltrip, you're on board with him, sits back in second place. Schrader is third, Earnhardt is fourth, and Kulwicki is now in fifth with 10 laps to go in race number 1 of this afternoon's Winston. We'll be back with more from Charlotte right after this.
I alluded to. Yeah. Done. Who's like I said? It's me. Ah. Pretty close. I think you're definitely got a draft on now. Wallace went right down there.
Well, look at Darrell come off that corner.
He wouldn't be about to roll himself. No. Just to draft off.
We're back live at Charlotte with just 6 laps to go now in the first race this afternoon of the Winston. 2 more yet to go. You ride on board with Darrell Waltrip as he chases Rusty Wallace, the leader of this first race. Waltrip runs in second, and Schrader runs back in third place.
He ain't chasing no more, Paul. He caught him.
He's right on top of him, sitting right behind. Here's the top 5 right now as they come into the closing laps. This is a critical position. Critical because they will line up in the next race after a 10-minute break in the order of the finish of this race. So everybody now wants to begin to surge toward the front. Get a little extra racing room, an extra position if you can.
Watch Darrell Waltrip's foot when we have the in-car cam on again. People can see when he gets on the gas, like right here, when he backs off going into turns, and when he's doing partial throttle. I think it's kind of interesting to see that.
There's Darrell Waltrip in second place. Very cagey race driver as he is setting himself up to take a run on Rusty Wallace. Look at him as he brings that wheel over in the corner.
Another thing to take note, they don't use brakes here, only to come into the pit. They never touch the brakes going around the racetrack. Now he's really on Rusty's tail. He's got all the draft he can use here at Charlotte. It's really going to be working, and there's only about 4 laps remaining.
That's why carrying momentum is so critical on an oval. You just have to carry your speed just as far and fast as you can. You're really actually slowing down only by the action of turning into the corner.
Exactly right.
You can also notice Rusty Wallace goes down a little bit more. You notice that, Benny? As soon as Darrell got up right to him, he just used a little bit more of the racetrack to the left.
Onto the backstretch. Waltrip moves in behind Wallace. Sets himself into position, heading for turn 3. Onto the high bank.
Better hurry, DW. There's only 2 1/4 laps to go.
On board with Darrell Waltrip now. As they head for the stripe one more time. When they come around, they'll see the starter tell them it's 2 laps to go. Down into turn 1. The continuing fight for the lead. Wallace has it at the moment. A slower car just in front of him. That could be a factor as they head toward turn 3 now.
Just like Bobby Unser talked about a moment ago, those cars in front of our leaders do not want to go a lap down, so they're not going to move over as they customarily would do to let these guys go by. So traffic might be a problem.
They really can't afford to move over, Benny, because they go down a lap and carry that into the next race. So they've really got to go for it. In fact, this is probably one of the hardest times that they're going to have, period.
White flag is out. 1 lap to go, 1/2 lap to go now.
Off of the second turn, onto the backstretch. Waltrip closes in just a bit on Rusty Wallace.
Harry Gant is going to go a lap down.
They get around Gant. They put him a lap behind the lead of the race as we come for the start-finish line. And for the checkered flag. And Rusty Wallace leads Waltrip across the line. So Wallace will start on the pole. Waltrip alongside in race number 2. Waltrip couldn't get it done.
About another half a lap, and Hillen would have gone down the lap.
That's exactly.
He came out really lucky on that one.
We see Darrell talking to his crew already. He was talking to his crew, telling them what they're going to do in this next 10 or 15 minutes that they've got to get the car where they can beat that 27 car.
Any adjustments that need to be done are going to be done in 10 minutes.
So Rusty Wallace wins race number 1 this afternoon, the 75-lapper. It's the 50-lapper that comes up next. A look from the Speedway Club, where they've seen a whale of a first race. We'll be back with more coverage of the Winston after this message and a word from our ABC station.
We have been here, Jack. Walter is racing hard, isn't he? He is.
That's, I was, you know, we and I a while ago, I think we set up that wall.
You know what, the lumens are really working. See the scoreboard?
Oh, really?
If you need any help, you let me know. Go ahead. Right. All right. You count me to that, Walter Peace, and we'll get you there. Money, Clock, Jackaroot, and Wallace, Walter Peace.
Baby down there.
This is when you guys got to look alike. I'll read it back to you. Money, the Clock, Jackaroot with Wallace, Gary Punch with Earnhardt, then a lead to the Walter Piece. We ride. Mike, when you do that stuff, don't be so funny. Just lay your hand. Don't be so funny. Just lay your hand. You don't need to point to the cars. Well, we're back live at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We've completed the first race of the 3 races this afternoon in the Winston. And the results from race number 1. Now remember, as we take a look at the results, that they will line up now to start race number 2 in the order of their finish from race number 1. Now they've made their 1 pit stop in the 75-lapper. Pit stops not required any longer in any of the 2 races left over. A 50-lapper, 75 miles, and then a 10-lapper, 15 miles. This is the countdown clock. They have 6 minutes, 34 seconds to go as they work on the cars in the pits now. So let's go to the pits. The winner of the first race, Jackaroot, is with Rusty Wallace.
And, Paul, you can see the work that's going on the car because they're making some changes. Not any major changes because they've elected to stay with the same setup for this second round. But Rusty Wallace, well, he's hot. Not literally inside the car about anything that happened, but by the temperature inside the cockpit. And they're using this big fan to cool him off. Rusty kind of hot in there, but kind of a good victory thus far in round 1 of the race.
Well, it's not real hot. I'm just trying to, it is a little hot, I guess. Just trying to cool down a little bit. Got one segment down, 2 to go. The 2 roughest ones coming up, you know. Darrell Waltrip looks to be tough. I had a real bad push at the end after my tire change. It's the reason he caught me so quick. It should be okay now.
What were the thoughts, though, when you came up on that lap traffic, knowing that they weren't going to let you by like you would in a normal situation?
It was kind of tough. What was really tough, when the checkered flag fell, I didn't see it because they're waving the Winston flag. I'm used to a checkered, and I thought the white flag was still out. Bobby Hill was right in front of me. I couldn't get around it, and I'm driving as hard as that's the reason I made an extra lap. I thought the checker was coming out the next lap.
Well, he got it, and let's check in with Jerry Bunch.
Well, they're also working on the Chevrolet of Dale Earnhardt. They're changing the torsion bar in the front of the car to get the car to handle a little better in the corners, and Dale's still sitting in the machine. Dale, when you had that cut tire, you got serious with him. You were at the back of the pack, and you came to the front in a hurry.
Well, we came hard as we could get, and Rustin has beaten us a bit. We're trying to make an adjustment here to make it better. We'll do something in this 50 laps. But I think the cars are going to be pretty good for a short run. We don't want to do too much. We're just doing a small adjustment here that we can change back if we have to. See what it does.
Well, Dale is busy inside the cockpit trying to put some asbestos around his foot where he just about burned it in his first 75-lap segment. He is a hot driver here inside the cockpit and hoping for a better run in the next event. Powell?
Well, 4 minutes and 42 seconds left. There is Darrell Waltrip's car. He's on a hot streak this year with 3 wins, including the Daytona 500 after 17 years of trying. Jackaroo takes a look at this man from Tennessee.
When Darrell Waltrip first came on the Winston Cup Tour, the book on him was that he was brash, outspoken, and obsessed with winning. Win he did on the track, but fans and competitors frowned upon this tempestuous terror from Tennessee.
I would have booed Darrell Waltrip 10 years ago, too. Very inconsiderate, very selfish, and not much love in my heart. And if there was anybody at fault, it was always the other guy. I never did anything wrong. Win at all costs. Just a very selfish person.
Wherever and whenever misfortune struck, the crowd would seize upon the opportunity to show their displeasure with the new star by cheering. After this '83 crash in the Daytona 500, Waltrip watchers whispered that his career would go into a tailspin.
And in this business, like any other business, I guess, people are anxious to write you off. As soon as they can find some reason to, they will write you off.
He was written off more than once. A 6-year association with the legendary Junior Johnson ended despite a 3rd Winston Cup title in 1985. While successful on the track, the fans still reluctantly embraced his style.
Just couldn't ever understand why nobody liked Darrell Waltrip or why they wasn't excited when I won until about 82, 83, 84, long in there, when I stood back and took a hard look at myself and realized, hey, the kind of person you are, nobody's ever going to be glad you win.
After taking that hard look, Darrell Waltrip made an effort to clean up his image, and it took new meaning when he signed a long-term contract with Charlotte businessman Rick Hendrick. Waltrip hoped that the tide would turn, so to speak, and slowly it did. A big part of the transformation came when Darrell's wife, Stevie, presented the couple with their first child, Jessica Lee.
Jessica just has an effect on him. He can be extremely tense and really into fixing the car and have his focus on that. And you bring her into that situation and his whole demeanor changes.
Now I'm Jessica's dad. Maybe had I had children sooner, I would have had a different attitude. But certainly having Jessica has made a big impact in my life.
A 17-year odyssey ended this year when Darrell captured his first Daytona 500. It was the crowning achievement to his career. Some maintain that achievement has made Darrell Waltrip
fat and happy, and he ain't going to race hard. Far from the truth, but that's what was going around. 89, I'm going to put that to rest, but that's not true. Give me a good car and a good team and in the right situation, and I can outdrive anybody.
And I tell you what, we saw a new Darrell Waltrip in that race 1.
Boy, he has been very cagey this year. Here's the total of earnings out of race 1 and the total for the day. Wallace, $25,000 richer. His race win added to his qualifying money. The crews continue to work on their cars. A minute and a half or so to go until they're called back again. We'll be back.
Yes, I hear you. It's Sam Posey at Indianapolis. Yes, I do, for the first time. Thank you.
Hi, Sam.
Yep.
Sam, talk to us.
Obviously, we're not.
Sam?
He's not there.
Well, they're bumping already, so. Benny, what are they doing down there to the dirt?
This is
Probably putting some water in it so they don't.
Tell me a little bit about the crash. Were there any circumstances leading up to it? It was the, no. How do we describe it? Was the rear deck lid?
Yeah.
Okay.
The body work from the driver back.
All right.
Alan.
Yeah.
Sam, you can hear us.
Sam, can you hear us?
Thanks. Just including the Charlotte.
I hope so.
Sam.
Just finishing on.
Hey, Bulls were ahead.
20th to what?
That'll make it easier for the Lakers.
They were up 33-12 in the first quarter. I'm not throwing anybody out.
It didn't look like they were starting. It looks like maybe they didn't have a clutch, huh? Jack, a road or Jerry?
We're back live at Charlotte, ready for the start of race number 2. But first, let's get an update from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Here's Sam Posey.
Thanks, Paul. The track is open for practice here now at Indianapolis, and very few of the cars that have yet to qualify are going out right now. They are waiting for cooler conditions later in the day. As you well know, cooler air means higher speed. Now, I did speak earlier of the accidents we had here. 3 men were involved, all rookies, curiously. Michael Greenfield, who spun down in turn 1. Didier Tace, who crashed into him. You see no, this is the Danny Sullivan accident that we had just 10 days ago. A bad accident in turn 3 when the cowling of Danny's car came loose and he slammed into that turn. Danny, I understand, thank you, by the way, for coming, that is the first time that you've seen the footage of your crash. What do you think of it?
It was a lot bigger than I thought. I guess I'm pretty lucky to get out just with a broken arm and a slight concussion.
Well, congratulations, of course, for qualifying yesterday at a terrific speed. How exactly did the run go for you?
Well, of course, we didn't have the car in qualifying trim. We put it in race trim. The car was good, but the idea was just to get it in the show, do a nice, comfortable speed. I had one problem on the first lap, and then from then on, it was perfect.
How do you think your arm is going to be in the race? What are the prospects for driving 500 miles with your right arm in a cast?
Well, in the last 2 days, I've done a total of almost 300 miles, and it feels good, so I think we're going to be okay. We got a week of therapy. We'll be fine.
Okay, good luck to you. Just to finish that thought, Michael Greenfield, Didier Tace, Steve Butler, all of the rookies involved in crashes earlier here are absolutely fine. Not hurt at all. Their cars are damaged, but they're fine. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Sam. We expect then some action a little bit later in the afternoon from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, this is the way they line up for this race number 2. It's a 50-lapper. They are on the back straightaway, and the pace car should begin to accelerate away as they're lined up single file now. That's most notable. Sterling Marlin has moved from 20th to 8th place. He started the last race in 20th. He's now in 8th. But you find them the way you left them at the end of the last race. A 10-minute interval. They've all worked on the cars, made some adjustments, and now with Rusty Wallace out in front, followed by Waltrip, Schrader, Earnhardt, and Kulwicki, they're ready to come down to the line. Those are the top 5 drivers as Wallace slows it down just a bit, coming off of 4. Now begins to pick up the pace. The green light winks on, the flag flies, and Wallace begins to lead. Waltrip
Schrader, Kulwicki, and Earnhardt begin to battle for fourth place as they head off into the first turn.
Rusty Wallace again, right down to the white line through turn 1 and turn 2. And a little bit of that was protection to keep Walter from being able to get under him, Paul.
Waltrip glued right to the back end of Wallace's car in a fight for the lead. Schrader runs alone, running in third. And Earnhardt now occupies fourth place. But just behind Earnhardt is Kulwicki and Elliott.
Bill Elliott's showing a little bit of strength right now that he hasn't shown us earlier on today.
That's right, Penny. And Earnhardt also, remember, now he did change the sway bar on his car, so it may take him a lap or two to feel whether that Chevrolet's going to respond to it or not. So we'll see whether that helped or not.
Both of you were watching all of the crews as they were working during the 10-minute interval. Didn't seem to anybody really frantic about their car.
There was no panic going on. There really was no panic going on. These guys just massaging the cars around.
On board second place car, the leader, Rusty Wallace, just ahead.
They race these NASCAR cars about 35 times a year, these same cars. The guys are really used to the changes they're going to do. When the driver says there's a problem, like if there's a push to it, the mechanics and driver basically know what to change on it, Bob.
That's a good point. They do know because they race so much, and not only do they race 35 times a year, they probably test 30 or 40 more days a year. So these fellows are in these race cars 75, 80 days a year.
Benny, aren't you glad you're up here in the television booth, not on the racetrack today?
Yeah, that's right. I only got to work 1 day a week.
I tell you what, I haven't seen anybody as excited in a broadcast booth as Benny Parsons, as there is Waltrip still trying to move on Rusty Wallace. Waltrip trying up to the high side.
Now that's something different. He's not only trying it, he's going right on by Wallace.
On the backstretch, Waltrip takes the lead.
Wow, on the outside.
That's the pass of the day, Benny.
That is the pass of the day. Darrell Waltrip, great move on the outside of Rusty Wallace. I don't think Rusty expected that.
Now remember what we said earlier. The first lap would be bailing them out. The second race, the 50 lapper right now, is going to be go for broke, getting ready for that last 10 lapper.
Well, if there was a question about the Lumen, it ought to be over now. Let's get an update comment from Jack Arute.
Paul, one Lumina that has his share of problems in the engine department is your third-place machine, Kenny Schrader. You see, Schrader has a serious problem with the oil pump. The shaft is trying to work its way out. They discovered it during that 10-minute intermission, and they've said it's like riding with a time bomb right now. I asked Richard Groom if he thought that Schrader could go the distance. He says, I doubt it, but we'll roll the dice and see how far we can go.
That's a brave group, because if that shaft works its way out, you're going to suddenly see zero oil pressure, and a few seconds after that, the engine's going to go all over the place. The battle for fourth place. Earnhardt, Kulwicki.
And just a moment ago, a half a lap ago, the order was reversed. Kulwicki was in front of Earnhardt. Earnhardt passed him down the front straightaway. Made a great move going in turn 1 on Alan Kulwicki.
Elliott now running in sixth place, continues to stay in contact with the front of the field, playing a pretty cagey race.
Well, Earnhardt still isn't moving as good as he seemed to be moving in the early part of the last race, Benny. He's past Kulwicki for sure, but he's falling back just a little bit.
So this is fourth, fifth, and sixth. Earnhardt, Kulwicki, and then Elliott. The front of the field, it is Waltrip. He picked up the lead from Wallace. Wallace won the first race, picked up $20,000 in doing so. There's $20,000 on the line in the second race of this afternoon's running of the Winston. Earnhardt runs in fourth. Kulwicki backed in right behind.
Yes, and look at Earnhardt work the high groove. Kulwicki back down to bottom just like he was earlier. The only difference is his tail doesn't seem to be pulling away right now. The three of those cars are really in a tight, close, good draft.
Tell you what, it's a shame this isn't for the lead because this is the best race on the racetrack now.
So Earnhardt continues to run in fourth. Immediately following the Winston, Schlitz Malt Liquor Professional Boxing. The IBF World Featherweight Championship from Phoenix, Arizona. As the champion, Jorge Paez puts his title on the line against Luis Espinoza. It's a scheduled 12-round battle. Paez has the title, but Espinoza will have the home crowd rooting for him. That's the IBF World Featherweight Championship, and it's right after the Winston here on ABC Sports.
Remember now, Paul, this is a 50-lapper, no pit stops. The guys will go all the way on them. But they all started the race with new tires. They all got a good service. New fuel or completely full of fuel, all new new tires on the cars. And some of the drivers are feeling not just like you see Alan working on Dale right there, working the low crew. And pretty soon he's going to be trying for a pass because he can't wait too long.
Looked like he looked on the inside of Earnhardt that time, but not able to get enough momentum off the corner to pull alongside.
We continue to watch the battle for fourth place. The fight is between Earnhardt and Kulwicki as Earnhardt again moves up to the high side. Now Kulwicki closes in. He's going to go for a try as they come down across the start-finish line. Kulwicki moves to the inside, forces Earnhardt up to the high side. Can Kulwicki hold him there? Earnhardt stays right on his line. Now Earnhardt pushes a little high, and the high side works for Earnhardt as he stays in place.
Now that high side worked for Waltrip and for Earnhardt because Earnhardt was passed and he came right back around Kulwicki again. So maybe some of the other drivers are going to start trying that high side. There's Allen getting up there a little bit higher right now himself.
What happens is when Kulwicki goes in the corner on the, this is looking out Bill Elliott's car, the windshield of Bill Elliott's car, looking out Kulwicki's car. But what happens is when Kulwicki goes in the corner and Earnhardt's alongside, he doesn't have that big quarter panel to lean it into. The air that normally he would lean into isn't there. Earnhardt's taking it away. It makes the car very loose.
And another thing, the car that's leading, even though you're going along downside a car, you're still operating in the slipstream. You're still operating in the draft, maybe. So even though a car is on the side, you still got a big cone shape at about a 45 degree of good, quiet air to go through.
Exactly. On board the sixth place car, the Ford of Phil Elliott. That's Kulwicki lying just ahead, and just ahead of him is that black number 3 of Earnhardt. As they're the best fight on the circuit, it is still Waltrip out in front, and Rusty Wallace running in second place.
Looks like Elliott just doesn't have it quite hooked up today like we expected him before the race.
Back at the front of the field, Waltrip leads this race. Jackaroo.
Well, Paul Page, you were alluding to the fact that it looked as if Darrell Waltrip was shot out of a cannon on the outside of the corners there. Well, what they've done is they've adjusted the car, loosened it up a bit, because that's precisely what Darrell was complaining about during the first race. He said the car runs good down the straightaway, but it's a tad too tight, and it feels like it wants to bog down when it comes out of the corner. So they've loosened it up, and it seems to be working well.
Waltrip runs in front. And there is Kulwicki and Earnhardt. They continue to fight their way. Kulwicki now going to pull down to the inside. A second ago, he was almost up alongside Earnhardt. Had to drop back. And now he's been forced back a little further. But Elliott begins to close in now on Kulwicki.
Boy, it was getting close right there now. That Elliott's coming to life here. He realizes he's going to have to get going in this race. Otherwise, no chance for that 10-lapper.
Boy, this is some great racing to the backstretch now. Earnhardt rides in fourth. Kulwicki, then Elliott. The battle continues.
Earnhardt is without a doubt one of the hardest guys in the world to pass. He just will not give anything. It's all, he will not give you anything. And Bobby, you've raced with guys like that before. It makes it awfully hard.
Benny, it seems like with Earnhardt, he just wants to make an issue out of everything on that racetrack. You can't do anything but be proud of the man for doing it. He's the stubbornest driver I've ever seen.
I'm going to tell him you said that.
You talk about a winning attitude. Nice thing about this race is everybody here is, in fact, a winner. As we look at Wallace now being challenged by Ken Schrader, that's the battle for second place. Each one of these guys has their mind set on winning. They know how to win. They know how to plan their race just right. And they've got that winning attitude, which is always so important in any sport. So Wallace, now running in second place, is trying to hold off a charging Ken Schrader, and Waltrip is our leader. We're in race number 2 of the Winston, and we'll be back.
Come to life, didn't it, Schrader?
Yeah. I tell you what, those cars are pretty evenly matched out there. You know, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You got 10 cars in the back straightaway. That's pretty doggone.
Waltrip's hooked up. He's hooked up. Just will help him more than it did Earnhardt for sure. And Kulwicki had him. He just couldn't. That Earnhardt.
He's unbelievable.
Oh, I'm telling you what.
never lets go.
No, he won't. He just won't let go.
He's just a bulldog.
We're not hearing much out of Jack and Jerry. Jack still is in camera.
Right.
Waltrip's blowing them off today. No question about that. Smoking.
I have number 2105 in front of me. Right.
In this race, compared to next Sunday's race, your crew bolts you in the car, helps you get in, and they pat you on the back and say, don't bring me back nothing but the steering wheel.
Darrell Waltrip, the current leader. Next Sunday's race is the World 600 here from Charlotte, but at the moment, it's the Winston, an entirely different event than any other race these NASCAR champions drive throughout the year. 3 different races on the same Sunday afternoon. At the end of the run, $200,000 to the winner. They started after a very special qualifying, which included 3 laps against the clock and a pit stop. And at the end of the first race, it was Wallace out in front. But then they lined up in the order of finish of the first race, put Wallace out in front for a bit, but then Waltrip forged his way past into first place. Wallace now runs second, Schrader third, and we're looking at the battle for fourth. It continues between Earnhardt and Alan Kowicki.
You know something? Alan Kowicki has been trying very hard to get by Dale Earnhardt. But I'm not sure right now I would try so hard, because starting on the inside on that last 10-lap deal could be an advantage.
Except, Benny, that it looks like the groove has moved up, at least for some of the cars, if they get the cars adjusted right.
We'll see.
But the one question has been answered, and that's that the Chevrolets are working pretty good here. They're running in first, third, and fourth at the moment. Jerry Punch.
Well, gentlemen, apparently Jeff Hammond and the Waltrip crew did a great job making the adjustments during the timeout here just a little bit ago. But also Dale Earnhardt's crew, Bill Elliott's crew, made the same change. Now, what they changed was this front torsion bar, this front sway bar, they call it. It's a little bit hot, so pardon me. This came out of Earnhardt's car. They changed it by 1/16 of an inch. Now, Earnhardt put a bigger one in to tighten the car up in the corner. Elliott put a smaller one in to make the car a little bit looser. Now, Earnhardt may have made the car a little too tight. He can't quite go to the front like he could during that first segment. So maybe an 1/16 of an inch doesn't seem like much to you or me, but in one of these things, it controls the entire front steering and turning of a race car. Paul?
It certainly does, Jerry Punch, and the thing that it does counteract is the springs that are in the car. The cars, even though they're the same makeup car, really don't have all the same parts in them. The springs are different, so they put different sway bars to counteract how the springs are doing on the racetrack.
We're just past the halfway point in the second race of today's Winston, the 50-lapper, 75 miles. Waltrip leads it, followed by Wallace and Schrader. Dale Earnhardt runs in fourth, then Kowicki, and then Elliott. A little tire smoke coming off the back of Earnhardt's car. The third-place car, Ken Schrader, Jack Arute, is in his pit.
Now, Paul Page, you know, we told you about that oil pump that was ticking like a time bomb beneath the hood of Ken Schrader's car. This is Richard Broom, and Richard, you're doing an awfully good job, or Schrader is, with an oil pump that should be pulling the oil out of the engine instead of pumping it through.
Well, I reckon we're just lucky. There's nothing holding the shaft in the pump. The snap ring is broke, and the shaft is trying to get out the front.
Now, you cannot change oil pumps because it'd take too long. What are you going to do?
We're just going to jerry-rig a deal to try to hold the shaft in it.
Well, that's the story from down here. He's running in third place, though, so it seems to be working well enough right now.
Now just remember one thing, though. If the oil pump lets go, Paul, Benny, it lets go. He probably has a red light in there to tell him no more oil pressure, but the engine is done at that particular time. There's no saving it. These engines are turning better than 7,000 RPM.
And when that goes to zero oil pressure, the day is done.
The day is absolutely done, and he'll be able to feel it just an instant before it breaks if he doesn't see the red.
Of course, now, if it does go like that, a little bit of danger there if the oil gets out of the motor and onto the racetrack. It could get over your rear wheel.
Well, that's right. The car would spin or make a wet spot for the cars coming along behind you.
In this particular case, Benny, he would have a red light, and he would just kick it out of gear if he sees a red light. Isn't that right?
If he can do it fast enough, eh, Benny?
If he can do it fast enough. But on a bright summer day like today, sometimes you can't see that red light. As we watch Darrell Waltrip next in turn 4 coming down to complete one more lap.
Almost a 2-second lead Waltrip has over Wallace.
Now you notice how high Darrell is running, even going into turn 1 right there. He almost touches the wall. Look at here. Totally the high groove. Totally different from what he did earlier. So obviously the changes that he thought he needed before at the end of the last race to get him, and they worked because he's definitely in the high groove.
20 laps to go in the second race of the Winston, the 50-lapper. Darrell Waltrip is out in front, followed by Wallace. We'll be back with more coverage of the Winston after this message and a word from our ABC station.
Waltrip is killing that race for us. What if you slow down?
Yep, put the race winners on the board. Just as they just did. They came up single file on the last one. That's what I thought. That's what we expected for the 70
We expected this time, didn't we?
Yep.
I kind of did myself.
Well, we had talked about it.
I just had Billy France in here and asked him. He didn't know.
Would have been a better race the last time if they'd have done it side by side.
Today. Put Wallace up there. Here.
Somebody better slow Darrell down because he's wrecking our race.
Yep.
Okay.
Current to this minute.
Rusty's running pretty sideways up there. You notice that?
That's what happened.
Okay. Look at that. I'm getting my head adjusted wrong.
I looked at myself and he's sideways.
That's what's the matter with him. He's too loose, you see?
We're back live at Charlotte in the Winston, and the view is from the Speedway Club, where the members are enjoying their afternoon, a little lunch, and some terrific racing as we watch Darrell Waltrip, who's got a pretty good record here at Charlotte. 6 different victories, the 85 Winston, the 78, 79, and 85 World 600, and the 500-miler in the fall in 1981. Waltrip leads the race at the moment. This is the second race of the day. And here is the earnings so far coming into the start of this race in the 1989 season. Well, Waltrip's got a chance here in a few minutes to add another $20,000 onto that figure. And if he does it all the way to the end of the day, another $220,000. They pay $20,000 for each of the first two races if you win it. And, of course, if you win the third race, the little 10-lap dash, then you're $200,000 richer, Benny.
Wouldn't that be something to have won $600,000 like 9 races into the season?
And a third of it is a result of a single afternoon's drive.
Yes. Good money and a sure piece of work, doesn't it, Benny?
I'm telling you.
Well, you know, as we
guys that ought to know.
As Benny and I were watching Wallace just a bit ago, we noticed that he's running pretty sideways coming off the turns. They're really loose. I think what he's done is possibly, there's Ken Schrader, who's been pushing him. I think that Wallace has really been a little bit loose and probably going to adjust his car again.
I'm sure he will be.
Well, Ken Schrader, he runs in third place. We take a look at the top 5. Moving along. Ken Schrader, third place. Moves around the Charlotte Motor Speedway. This ring is Ken Schrader's. It was awarded for his 1983 USAC championship. It came to 85 to NASCAR, right?
We
The
won
Don Levy car.
several USAC championships in the open wheel cars, and USAC gives you a real nice ring at the end of the year for champion, like NASCAR does. And this thing had like 12 diamonds in it, and every time I get in the car for my rookie year, Junie'd make me give him the ring. And a couple times I brought the car back pretty bent up. He had scraped one of them diamonds out of there. He'd chiseled it out, so I was pretty careful with his equipment.
Kenny Schrader runs in third position. Runs there alone at the moment. In fact, the top 3 not really closely challenged. Waltrip about 2 seconds out in front of the second place Rusty Wallace. But each of them now trying to decide how to set their position for the last 10-lap run. There's 10 laps left to go in this race. The 75-miler. We'll be back with more after this.
Walter's about to rub that wall coming up turn 4. He's hunting for that gray stuff. That's what Petty used to do, didn't he? Well, he used to run right up against that wall. He's really running up. Got it. Chassis adjustments. Some more. They're going to start them side by each. Next time.
Yes. I'm going to bring it up. We're back live at Charlotte, the second race in the afternoon's Winston. 3 different races, 5 laps to go for Darrell Waltrip. If there was a question about his new Chevy Lumina that's running in its second race this year, there shouldn't be now. It's leading Rusty Wallace's Pontiac by about 1.5 seconds. And then two more Chevrolets, Kenny Schrader and Dale Earnhardt run in third and fourth. Kowicki currently runs in fifth. Now, this race, they started with a single file lineup. The next race, which is 10 laps, just go as hard and fast as you can. They're going to line up 2 by 2 once again.
That's what I was saying just a moment ago when I was talking about Alan Kowicki trying so hard to get by Earnhardt. I'm not sure on 4 fresh tires that the inside groove might not be the place to be. Follow Darrell Waltrip, Ken Schrader, right to the front.
Well, Waltrip, look at him just working his way around the track.
Well,
the calmness you're seeing kind of belies 163 miles an hour, doesn't it, Bobby?
For sure it does. And you can see a car when it's really handling good. And Darrell is really handling. I don't care whether that's a new Chevrolet or an old one. He's really fitting the racetrack nice today. And I doubt that he's looking how up high he is. He gets up there right against that great stuff, the drive part of the track. And, you know, he's not going to need too many adjustments, but it is going to be, before the next 10 lapper, but it is going to be a little bit difficult because he's going to have another car alongside of him instead of being in single file for the next start.
No driver ever won a Daytona 500. Winston the same year. Waltrip's got a Daytona 500 under his belt.
What was he patting his knee for? What do you think that was all about?
I think he's so happy he's already clapping is what I think.
You think so?
He's already counting the $20,000 that he can see at the end of this thing on the backstretch.
Darrell's a very emotional man. He's got to be very happy. He only has a couple of laps left to go. He's got to be happy.
Well, Waltrip should see the white next time around. Look, got one foot up, propped up there just to brace himself in the corner, and the other foot nailed the throttle all the way down to the floor as the white flag comes out. In this 50-lap run, 75 miles for Waltrip. Rusty Wallace about a second and a half back. Then Schrader, then Earnhardt, then Kowicki, then Elliott, Marlin, Rudd, Allison, and Bodine rounds off the top 10. Waltrip heading for turn 3 and heading for a victory, heading for $20,000 at the end of this run.
He was talking to his crew going down the back straightaway. I saw him push the button down. There's a button on the steering wheel that you have to press to talk. As Darrell comes off, he's looking at the checkered flag right now.
And Waltrip wins the second race of the Winston. Wallace across in second place. Darrell Waltrip, $20,000 richer, and perhaps more important, he will start on the pole for the 10-lap run. They say it's a pump with a 10-lap fuse. Second place is Rusty Wallace. Ken Schrader comes across in third. Earnhardt in fourth. There's Kenny Schrader, the third-place finisher. And Dale Earnhardt comes across in fourth, followed by Alan Kowicki. So now, 10 more minutes. As soon as they get to the pits, they start the countdown. The crews will fall on these cars, tune them up for the next run. And the next run is only 10 laps long. We'll be back with more from Charlotte right after this.
So they get in together.
You all right?
Yep.
Are we getting it covered?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
How many of them are down one lap? Or how many are marked down one lap?
Harry Gant, Bill, Richard Petty. Bill's down too.
Why don't you name off the guys that you want, Paul? That are down
They'll give us a graphic if they want to do it.
Good, thanks. How are you?
Real good. Real good.
Understand. All right, they are going to come to us. All right, we'll make it 60 seconds.
They're coming to us?
No, they will make it 60 seconds.
Our piece might be a little short of that. They're not going to
Oh, no, that's cool. No.
Talk to Ned Simon.
Oh, Ned, it's Sam. Ned, it's Sam.
Hello, Sam.
Ned, it's Sam.
You're here, Ned. And then they say we can't do anything if you can't.
also up on the 29th. Of course, yeah, first and third.
Really? Really? That's good.
So that, Schrader was going to win this thing.
Well, we're back live at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The second race in this afternoon's Winston now complete. Rusty Wallace won the first one. Waltrip the second. Average speed thus far at 146 miles an hour. We had a long caution when Kyle Petty got into the wall. He's over at the hospital, but they say he should be all right. Now, this second race won by Darrell Waltrip. Let's go down to the pits, Jackaroo.
As you saw near the end of that race, Darrell Waltrip was slapping his knee or rubbing his knee. Darrell, what in heck were you doing there?
My hand went to sleep, and I was kind of waking it up.
Well, it really has been a good race for you in that second installment, but now they light the fuse. Now it's a time bomb for 10 laps. What do you do?
Well, Jack, it comes down to a good start. I'll be on the pole, I reckon. And if I come down here and I get off to a good run and I can get the jump on Rusty and everybody, and I get in that first turn first, cancel Christmas. But if I get in there and get messed up a little bit, then, like you said, the fireworks are going to start.
Well, one of the men that will probably be part of that fireworks is standing by with Jerry Punch right now. Jerry?
Well, this guy waiting to light the fuse also, Jack, in his final 10-lap segment. And, Rusty, you had the rocket run the first segment, but the second segment you had a little bit of a problem, even though you finished second. What happened?
Well, on that last stop, somehow mistakenly, we got the right front tire on the right rear accidentally, and there's a difference in circumference. And the car was just real loose. I was having to drive in almost dead sideways. They got everything right now. We're cooling the engine down real cool, trying to give everything it can. Cooling the car down, cooling myself down. Just going to dry the hell out of it. That's all I can do.
That sums it up. Round one to Wallace, round two to Waltrip. And I tell you, these guys are cooling off, getting ready for that rubber match. The final round, 10-lap shootout here for the Winston. Paul?
And a couple of confident guys. 5 minutes, 18 seconds left to go on the pit road. The crews, their usual professional job, calmly, quietly, preparing the cars. It's the final 10-lap run coming up. Darrell Waltrip sits and waits, and we'll be back.
What he meant was Rusty cancel Christmas. Is that what he meant?
Yeah, he didn't say that just right, did he?
94 car.
Cooling that baby down.
Yeah. See what they're going to do. And I think that we ought to bring this up. They're going to just get everything as cold as they can possibly get it for it.
Okay. Is that right? I don't think so. Why? I don't think Wallace is correct.
He won 5 in qualifying.
Yeah, but they don't have that figured into Walters. So you figure these are with, we're going to do it with qualifying. That's all right. I can make that graphic work. Yeah, we can do it with, we can make it be right. It's right. We'll do it. Yes. Yep. We're back live at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The clock continues to count. Here are the earnings thus far. Now, this money includes money earned yesterday in the qualifying run as well. Rusty Wallace still out in front as far as money is concerned, but there's still 10 laps to go. Let's go to Sam Posey in Indianapolis.
Temperature is rising, now over 82 degrees in an afternoon that has become very hot. 3 drivers have been added to the field today. First of all, Johnny Rutherford, the 3-time former winner of this race, squeaked into the show at 213 miles an hour. Billy Vukovich III, grandson of the great Bill Vukovich, who won this race twice back-to-back in the 1950s. He roared into this race with a speed of over 216 miles an hour. The Vukovich family, remember, one of the great families of Indianapolis, along with the Andrettis, the Bettenhausens, the Unsers. Who left, then, can make the speed and get into the race? 2 drivers stand out. Rich Vogler, who is waiting for cooler weather to come a little bit later in the day. He's run 2:12 already, but needs cooler weather. And right now, we have on the track Davy Jones. Just saw him go by, trying to earn his way back into the pack and bump the man that bumped him back out of the race. Now, standing by in Phoenix, Arizona, we have Dan Deardorff. Dan?
Who's the second car out?
Champ Jorge Paez, the IBF World Featherweight Champion and one of the most flamboyant fighters on the circuit today. He'll be challenged this afternoon by the number 3 challenger, Louis Espinoza, there with his son, Alexis Ray, named after Alexis Arguello, and his good friend, Ray Mancini. Also on our undercard that we'll be bringing to you live this afternoon, Olympic silver medalist Michael Carbajal, also from the Phoenix area, will be in a 4-rounder that we'll open up our show with in just a little while. So coming up, a lot of boxing your way on the Schlitz Malt Liquor Professional Boxing Series from Phoenix, Arizona. How about now? We'll go back to Charlotte, and here's Paul Page.
Thanks, Stan. The clock has just run out. The cars roll, and they are ready. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Schrader, what do? You're in third. Pass them other 2 guys. That's all we got to do. Well, he's fired up, and he's ready to go. They've lit the fuse.
It will be 10 laps now. 10 laps to $200,000. The pace car pulls away. They line up 2 by 2. Waltrip and Wallace, the front row. Then Schrader and Earnhardt make up the second row. The winner of this little 10-lap, 15-mile run will take home $200,000. Already been some pretty good money pocketed. Rusty Wallace moves out on the high side as we take a look now at the field. Wallace to the outside. Waltrip on the pole. Row 1, row 2, Schrader and Earnhardt. Looking back through the field, Kowicki and Elliott will start the 3rd row. Marlin and Rudd in the 4th row. The 5th row, Davey Allison, Jeff Bodine. The 6th row, Lake Speed and Greg Sachs. The 7th row is now made up of Labonte, the original pole sitter, and Bobby Hillin Jr. And the 8th row, Neil Bonnet and Harry Gant. The 9th row, Richard Petty, Phil Parsons. There is no 10th row. Morgan Shepherd and Kyle Petty are out of the race. Kyle Petty going to the hospital, not believed to be seriously injured, but still they wanted to take a look at him, and Morgan Shepherd just pulling out of the competition. We look back from the pace car now. We're ready to go. We're ready for 10 laps of fire.
You know, I talked about at the very top of the show how this race is for the fans and how it generates interest for the fans. I'm excited, aren't you, Paul?
Well, I am pumped for this one. Chevrolet has won 3 of the last 4 Winstons. Will they do it again today? They're on the pole for this start.
Now keep in mind, Darrell is on the bottom, on the pole. Rusty Wallace is on the outside, Paul. That's just exactly the opposite of where Darrell was going fast at the latter part of the last race. I think if he had a choice, he would prefer to be on the outside, don't you, Benny?
I don't know. I think with the cold tires, he would want to be on the inside for the first 2 or 3 laps. Then we see Darrell going back and forth, getting the tires buffed in just a little bit, because the next time by, green flag and the fuse is lit.
For $200,000.
Whoa! And then we're going to see some racing. The view from the Speedway Club, boy, they're on their feet there. The fans in the stands, they're all on their feet. And I don't think we're going to see anybody sit down.
Hey, you folks at home, are you sitting down or standing up? Stand up nothing like the rest of them. This is exciting.
In
Just
the first
imagine.
turn. 1 lap to go now, Bobby Unser.
10-lap trophy dash. We've all seen that in our local races, you know, a trophy dash, but this is really a trophy dash for an amazing
The
200,000.
difference here is we're talking the best in NASCAR. And listen to that crowd. Boy, are they pumped and ready to go. Look at them. Over 100,000, 10 laps, $200,000 for the winner. The field is on the backstretch. The rows forming up. A real partisan crowd. Everyone has their favorites. Will it be Waltrip? Will it be Wallace? Schrader, Earnhardt, Kowicki. Any one of them could have a chance in this 10-lap dash.
They've raced 125 laps to get to this place right here, Paul.
The pace car pulls down. The field carefully sorts itself out. Wallace drops back just a bit. Look at Schrader. He wants to be right up there behind Darrell.
He's not letting Darrell get any way away from him. He's okay, Darrell. If you go in the infield, I'm following you, buddy.
Dale Earnhardt, the black number 3 car. The same sort of position as the flag comes out, the fuse is lit, and the bomb is about to let go. Waltrip picks up the lead. Then Wallace, Schrader, Earnhardt drops into 4th.
Darrell
the
Waltrip
first
went
turn.
right to the bottom, exactly where Benny said he would go. Tires anew, went to the bottom, tried to block Rusty from coming by.
Everybody held their breath there into the 3rd turn. Waltrip, Wallace, Schrader receiving a challenge now a little lower by Earnhardt.
Both those cars drove in turn 3 extremely hard, too hard, went to the top of the racetrack. If Schrader could have been there, he would have been able to get by. But no, he now closes up on the back of Wallace and looks going through turn 1.
Wallace came down low across the stripe, held off Schrader. Waltrip continues to lead.
He went right to the top of the track. As soon as he got to turn 3, right back to the top where he was the last race ball. The same back down 1 and 2. Now watch, he'll go right to the top of the group here.
1st through 4th, they're all fighting. Out in front, the 17 car. That's Waltrip. Can he do it? He won the Daytona 500. Can he win the Winston? That's never been done.
I remember another thing that almost all the cars were sure of done is that they tape up the front a little bit to keep the left air from going in. Increases the straightaway speed a little bit, but it also makes the engine run very hot. But it's just for a short time period.
I'd say they also loosened the cars up a little bit. Normally you can't run a loose car at a great distance, but Benny, when there's $200,000 out there at 10 laps, you can loosen it up a bunch.
Rusty Wallace, he said he was very loose. I don't know if he's left it that way or he tightened the car up, but he's not able to gain on Darrell Waltrip as they come off.
Look at Waltrip through. They're not going to let a breath out until the end of these 10 laps. Waltrip still out in front. Wallace chases.
10 laps, just like a qualifying race. 10 laps flat out. The radiators are pretty much covered up. They're probably going to burn the engines down, but for $200,000, who cares?
About 6.5 laps to go now. It's still Waltrip out in front. Wallace closes in. Wallace closes on the back end. That Chevy Lumina of Waltrip is working today. It was a question mark before the start. He's being chased by the Pontiac of Wallace. And then 3rd place is a Chevy as well. Darrell Waltrip, that 1 foot propped up, works his way down in the corner, pulls down with both hands, takes the high groove onto the backstretch.
He doesn't look like a guy that's trying to win $250,000, does he?
Calm, looking out the front windshield of that car, calculating his bank account if only he can get it through the next 5.5 laps.
Now Rusty's going to stay at the bottom a little bit, or at least lower than Darrell is, because Darrell is so high on the racetrack that Rusty couldn't get by on the outside, so he's going to have to keep working the bottom, see if he can't get a little bit of dry pavement and get a shot at him under there. Look at that.
There's Rusty. Halfway point. Rusty closes in.
I'm sorry, Paul, but he closed in on the back bumper of Waltrip. He's only 1 car length away.
The fight continues to turn 3. Waltrip still out in front, but let's watch the 27 car of Rusty Wallace. That Pontiac begins to power up behind Waltrip.
He's running harder, Paul. He has to run harder. It's the only chance he's got. He's going to have to go at the bottom of the racetrack. He's going to have to hope he can just get a hold of something.
Will it come down to a last lap dash? Look at Wallace. Once again, he comes low inside. Waltrip goes to the high line, off of 2, on the backstretch. Waltrip continues to lead it.
Now remember, Darrell will pull down a little bit if he has to. Anything he has to do that's at least being fair, he's going to do to keep Rusty from going by. If he thinks Rusty's going to try it like in the middle, Darrell will move down.
Rusty Wallace pulled up literally on the back bumper
crowd cheering Wallace on. Just over 2.5 laps to go. When they came across the stripe, it was 3 to go. Already they're on the backstretch. Wallace setting up behind Waltrip. $200,000 on the line. And the championship of the 5th annual Winston.
The $200,000 shootout. Winner take all.
Wallace closes in again. The closest he's been the last few laps. But again, Waltrip is able to power away.
2 laps to go. 3 miles. And it's close. Ooh,
look at him smoke the tire, and boy, Wallace gives it a try.
Wow, he jerked that car trying to get underneath there, Walter, and smoked the right rear tire.
He's even down running on the apron, man. He's trying to get a little bit of dry pavement there.
Darrell Waltrip in the 4th corner now. Wallace comes down low again.
Oh,
he smokes the tire. Waltrip loses it as they touch. Waltrip spins it backwards across the grass as they come to the white flag. The yellow flag comes out. The yellow flag comes out. And that means that the lap is not going to count. But can Waltrip get it going?
He's still got his engine running, Paul. He's still trying to get around. Of course, he's going to be way behind.
Special rule, though. Special rule. Unless it's on the last lap, which it was not. These laps don't count. It'll still be a run.
But he has to start at the back of the pack. And he will not be able to catch the cars starting at the back of the pack.
The question will be, is how will they line up behind Wallace for a one-lap dash?
Now, there's going to be one mad Darrell Waltrip. Look at his wife. Tears in her eyes. She's very sad. $200,000 lost right there.
Stevie
I'm
Waltrip
sure
was counting that money, I
Well,
think.
I don't think Rusty Wallace meant to hit him, but it just shows you what happens when they run as close as they do sometimes.
Waltrip, a little more grim-faced than he was a few seconds ago. He had hoped by this time to be counting his $200,000 prize. They'll line up behind the pace car. Where will Waltrip position his machine, Benny?
I don't quite understand why Darrell did go in the pits and change 4 tires, because we know that the tires on the car has to be flat spotted the way that he slid coming off turn 4.
Winner take all, Benny. He really doesn't have a lot to gain, right? He's just going to be in the back end anyway.
That's right.
For one lap, what difference does it make? The main thing is it's one sad Darrell Waltrip.
Benny, here's the onboard camera.
We see him going in turn 3. He goes to comes off the throttle. We see his right foot come up, lets the car drift up. Rusty Wallace is right behind him. He feels it. He touches. We see we touched. Darrell's trying to get the car back, but no, it's around. We see him turn back like Kyle Petty did, but the car is already around. He hits the brakes and simply lets the car come to a halt.
And Rusty gambled that there was going to be a hole on the outside, so he just went by on the outside, and luckily enough for him, Darrell wasn't there.
Okay, the question is, Rusty Wallace caused the problem. If that's true,
well, here
is there a penalty? Take a look here, Benny.
Rusty's trying to get underneath him. Just a moment ago, we saw the right rear tire smoke on Rusty's car from the other angle. Rusty trying desperately to get under. He touches Darrell Waltrip in the left rear. Around goes Darrell.
It absolutely was Rusty's fault. There's no question about that. They were just both trying very hard. Rusty possibly tried a little too hard.
The laps under yellow. The last 10 laps don't count. Let's go to the pits. Jerry Punch.
We're with Barry Dotson, Rusty Wallace's crew chief. And Barry, what did Rusty tell you happened out there between him and Darrell?
He said he got under Darrell and then everything got close. So I guess Darrell didn't give him any room, and evidently they touched. He didn't really know. He said he got down under him clean, all of a sudden he was gone.
Rusty Wallace's version is lack of racing room coming out of turn 4. That's the reason for the spin, he says. Paul?
Benny, I don't think so.
Well, no, he was trying very hard to get underneath Darrell, but there was room down there, but they were both trying to go for the same spot.
Yeah, racing for the lead.
It's just unfortunate.
Racing for their money. Let's go to the pits, Jack Arute.
Well, I'm with the car owner of Darrell Waltrip's car and the car that's in second place, Rick Hendrick. Of course, the car in second place is Kenny Schrader. Did Darrell say anything on the radio about what happened, Rick?
Nothing to say.
I think this time silence says it all, gentlemen.
Some anger there in the pits. A lot of money on the line. That brings the emotions higher. Darrell Waltrip sits in the back of this field. Worked his way up in the lineup past the cars that are a lap down, but he'll still start well back. His chances for this day are gone as he talks to his pit on the radio.
Yeah, he's telling Jeff and all the crew and Rick Hendrick listening in exactly what happened, what he feels like happened anyway.
Our hat has to go off to Darrell Waltrip. He drove an extremely good race. It really wasn't his fault. The sad thing would have to happen just one lap from the end to lose $200,000 and all the prestige that goes along with it.
Darrell Waltrip, there he is, back in the field. They'll come to the green flag with Wallace in front, followed by Schrader, Earnhardt, Elliott, Sterling Marlin, who, remember, came into this race in the Winston Open and started 20th in the first race, now running in 5th.
Here we see, look, all these teams crowded around a NASCAR official. I don't know what they could be talking about, but there's 3 or 4 different teams crowded around one official.
Well, there's certainly the question of how the two cars came together, and I think also a question about how many laps will they actually have when they come back to green. So the pace car leads the field around while they try to do the best possible cleanup they can on the circuit, and we'll be back for the finish right after this.
Jackers here.
What? The lap under caution. They were finishing lap 8 when the caution came out, so they're going to start at lap 8. Right. Well. Waltrip's going for tires.
I feel sorry for him. He didn't deserve that one.
The reason that they brought the car in was because when they found out that they only had 2 laps instead of 1 lap to go, they figured they could at least go on fresh tires. If it was only going to be 1 lap to go, they were going to suffer through it. That's what the big discussion was on pit road with the NASCAR officials. How many laps was going to be, and that's why they didn't bring him in until they knew. All right, sir. It'll come back with 1 lap to go, guys. We're back live at Charlotte Motor Speedway. When they come back to green, there will be 1 lap to go. But first, let's go take a look at the situation that set up this caution flag. Rusty Wallace was chasing Darrell Waltrip. Wallace had been loose for a couple of corners. He closed in trying to get by Waltrip to pick up the lead, and then they just tapped one another. And when they did, Waltrip lost control. Wallace tried to slow, was able to get past to the high side, and Waltrip spun across the grass. Let's go to the pits from Jackaroo. And Paul, Darrell did bring his car onto pit road, took on 4 new tires because he's got to come from the back, but they waited until the last moment because of the discussion by the NASCAR officials as to whether we had 1 lap or 2 laps when we went back to green. When they got the official word, they said, come on in, but it's a bittersweet problem and a situation right now on pit road in the Darrell Waltrip pit.
All right, well, did that little bump cost Darrell Waltrip about $185,000? He stood to win $200,000. Pace car has moved off the course. Kenny Schrader has moved up right behind Rusty Wallace. We watch for the flag. Accident happened on the 8th lap. We start then the 8th lap. 2 laps to go as the green flag flies. And it's Wallace leading Schrader and beginning to pull away.
He is beginning to pull away. Schrader stayed right on his bumper on the restart, but Rusty Wallace now has a 3-car length advantage off turn 2.
Earnhardt's in 3rd, Schrader 2nd. Wallace leads it.
Regardless of what happened with Wallace and Darrell Waltrip, he still got the race. It's still $200,000, 2 laps to do it. So the answer is still the same for him. He's got to go fast.
$200,000 just a mile and a half away as the white flag signaling the last lap comes out. Schrader closes in on Wallace.
on the final lap in the first turn. Schrader right at the back end. But look at the power in Wallace's Pontiac as he pulls onto the backstretch. Schrader looks for a little clean air.
What happened is Schrader drove the car in the corner just a little bit too hard, got the car pushing. He didn't make this mistake again, but I don't think he can make up the difference.
Just no time, Benny. They're coming down for the checkered flag now, Paul.
Wallace with a Pontiac Bauer, and the checkered flag as Wallace picks up $200,000 and the Winston. The Winston has been won by Rusty Wallace, followed by Ken Schrader and then Dale Earnhardt. $200,000 on a single 15-mile long. 15 miles and 200 grand. Rusty Wallace is the winner. We'll be back to talk with Rusty right after this.
He was going to.
He was.
I feel sorry for Darrell. Maybe Rusty didn't try to do it.
Look.
What?
Look, they got a fight going.
Where?
Get the fight.
Okay. Okay, all right. I'm Jack Arute here in Victory Lane at the end of the Winston, and Rusty Wallace has won it a little bit controversially, though.
Yeah, you know, it's just this 10 laps is a rough 10 laps, man. You got to drive hard. Darrell was driving hard. I was driving hard. I got up underneath him coming off at turn 4. We just got together. He come down. I try to help my groove. We both just touched. That's all there was to it. You know, I would have rather finished the race, me winning it, and nothing like that happening. But, you know, it happened this way in '87. And I don't think those guys were doing that on purpose either. And I didn't have nothing to do with doing that on purpose. It was a tough race. I'm sorry for Darrell. Glad we won. I'd like to thank Kodiak, Pontiac, Mobile One, AC Spark Plugs, everybody.
Paul, that's it from Victory Lane.
Well, Rusty Wallace picks up $200,000, but this was earlier. As you can see, the tempers are hot when there's that much money on the line, as quite a fight broke out just outside of the winner's circle here. Officials and other team members moved in trying to break it up. Went on for just a few minutes. So when you have that much money, you just naturally have a confrontation. And that's what we've seen today. Final results of the Winston. Rusty Wallace wins it, Ken Schrader, and then Earnhardt, Elliott, Alan Kowicki. Now, boxing is coming up next, but we'll continue to follow the story here from Charlotte, and we'll give you some updates throughout the boxing. We'll be able to talk to Darrell Waltrip and some of the others. We'll be back at Charlotte during boxing. The preceding program was brought to you by World Sports Enterprises Incorporated. Coming up next, Schlitz Malt Liquor Professional Boxing, the IBF Featherweight Championship from Phoenix, Arizona. Current champ Jorge Paez puts his title on the line against hard-hitting Louis Espinoza in a scheduled 12-round bout. That's the IBF World Featherweight Championship. Next on ABC Sports. Don't let Benny get too far away there.
What are we going to do? We'll be able to again?
We don't know.
Get my jacket and I'll get the other way there. Get two of them there? Yeah, that's it. Take it.
Yeah.
Back on that truck. Take it personally. Come on, back on that truck. Back on that truck. I want everybody out of my truck. Now.
All right.
Stay out of the truck for a while. Let us cool off. Come up in the truck. Okay, you've heard it. You've heard it. Come on, move out. Move out. Move out. Now.
All right. Yeah, I know. Okay. I had Darrell Waltrip. I just couldn't get your attention. I had him by the car when he got out of the car. I was screaming my head off. I just couldn't get through. Okay, I knew that. But you said get Darrell, and I kept screaming. I got him, but just couldn't. Okay, all right. They've gone in the truck now, and he's having a little discussion with the crew. Okay. All right. Okay, we'll do. No, the people were grabbing him and yelling and screaming. He was going to stop because I was trying to get your attention, but they just.
Do you want me to stay with Wallace? Okay. 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 Let me check in the trailer here, my friend.
Page is on the line.
Hey,
Hi there.
let me make a suggestion. This is Jack. We've already done what we can with Wallace, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hang out at the NASCAR trailer here in case he slips. We can get Beatty. He hasn't come down here yet, so. Right. But we'll hang out here.
No, we don't. Where's my cabin? But he will stay the night?
Everyone's all gone. Fran said he talked to them. The race is official. The only thing to do is find somebody maybe, if there's interest.
Yeah, we're just standing by if they get here. This is also reminiscent of what happened, Benny, as you know, at Daytona with Rusty. In the Grand National race.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we're checking right now. I'm going to see Rick Hendrick go back there and talk to him. Okay. Yes, sir. Okay, I just sent his wife Stevie's going back in there to talk to him. He's right now in a powwow with his crew chief and car owner Hendrick and Jeff Hammond. And I think there was some embarrassment with regard to what happened around Victory Lane with the crew people, because the driver is ultimately responsible for the behavior of the people he has at the racetrack. Okay, I'm going to try to find out right now.
Boy, that's... Yeah. Who will do Waltrip?
Hey, guys, I've got Les Richter here, who's the vice president of competition for NASCAR. Okay?
Hey, don't stay on us too long. His sun is right over the top of the camera. Really bright. In fact, if they could truck the camera.
I'm here with Les Richter, who's the vice president of competition for NASCAR. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm here with Les Richter, who's the vice president of competition for NASCAR. And Les, what's the official ruling on the finish of this race?
Well, right at this point in time, Rusty Wallace is the winner of Winston.
Any fines anticipated for not only what happened on the racetrack, but the altercation, the fist fight after the race?
I think the altercation of the fist fight is going to draw some attention. As far as the incident that took place in the racetrack, it was two cars racing for the finish, and they got together. One came down, one might have gone up. It's hard to say. We are looking at it from a different perspective than maybe a television camera is.
Well, that's the word from NASCAR, and they certainly do have the last word in competition here in the Winston. Hey, we're going to have a protest here, guys. And here's why. Rick Hendrick just told me that their feeling is that the way the rules are written, that if you go back to the last green flag lap, then Darrell Waltrip would be the leader, if that's the way the rule is written. They said either way. Now, if they say if they're going to do the way they normally do in short track racing and take the guys that caused the accident to go to the back of the pack, then Wallace would have been in the back along with Waltrip, and it would have been a situation where Schrader would have won the race. So he just told me he intends to protest the event.
Ned? You help us by moving the cameras a little to the left and getting them out of the line of the sun. They'll get it.
All right, we're working. She's back in there with Daryl now, and the crew have left, and the car owner have left, and I explained to him how important it is for us to be able to get his side of the story.
For NASCAR. And Les, what's the official ruling on the finish of this race?
Yes, sir. Okay, we'll do. Well, basically, the crew and car owner have been sequestered inside the truck here in the garage area, discussing what was happening. It was
Jerry, car owner is not. He's over here at NASCAR.
Well, I know. I'm just telling. Let me finish, Jack. They went inside to have a discussion on what was going on. And then Rick Hendrick left to go over to NASCAR.
Jerry, they told me, Hendrick said they are going to file a protest. Yes.
I'm playing to this camera now. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Talk me through it.
Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, I think we will. Here, he's... Okay, I told him he's coming right now. I'll have him. Okay, all right.
Against Louis Espinoza. We'll have that fight for you in just a couple of minutes. Right now, though, let's go to Charlotte and get a report on today's race. Here's Paul Page.
Well, Dan, we've had a very controversial finish of the Winston. Rusty Wallace has won it, but there's a very angry Darrell Waltrip. Let's go down to the pits with that story.
Well, a lot of emotions here in the Tide truck, and Darrell, one of them was anger when you guys got back here. What happened those last couple laps?
Car got I was a little bit loose in 3 and 4, and I guess Rusty saw that, so coming down to get the white flag, he just drove in under me up there and just turned me around. It didn't take a lot, but you know, with some people, you know how they are, so if you open the door, I guess you get what I guess you can expect, something like that. It was uncalled for. I could never race, I could never walk through this garage area having done that to someone, but some people can, and more power to them, I guess.
Darrell, after the race, there was an altercation outside of Victory Lane, both of the crews getting together a little bit. What are your feelings about that?
Well, the emotion's high, you know. This is a show, and it's sort of like the animals are getting a little tense right there at the end of the show, and one of them might bite you. So the tension was high. That was totally uncalled for out there. And the thing that I'm most upset about is NASCAR, first of all, not putting me back in the lead because they went back to the last green flag lap, they said. I was leading that lap. Second of all, that they don't put a stop to something like that. That's the two things I think are so wrong. And I guess, you know, we'll have to live with all that stuff. I guess everybody got what they paid for today.
Darrell, rumored is that Rick Hendrick may protest the finish because of the rules stating that you should have been back up front.
Oh, I don't know what good it'd do. You know, we can't go back and run the thing over. And he's absolutely correct. I mean, you can't go back to the last green lap and not put it back like it was. They put everybody else back like it was. And I didn't spin out. I got knocked out. So I should have been allowed to go back to the front. If they're going to do it right, I mean, to me, that's what they just took $200,000 away from me and told that boy that what he did was A-OK, do it again, buddy, if you got to.
That's Darrell Waltrip. Let's go to Jack Arute. Jack?
I'm here with Les Richter, who's the Vice President of Competition for NASCAR. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm here with Les Richter, who's the Vice President of Competition for NASCAR. And Les, what's the official ruling on the finish of this race?
Well, right at this point in time, Rusty Wallace is the winner of Winston.
Any fines anticipated for not only what happened on the racetrack, but the altercation, the fist fight after the race?
I think the altercation of the fist fight is going to draw some attention. As far as the incident that took place in the racetrack, there was 2 cars racing for the finish, and they got together. One came down, one might have gone up. It's hard to say. We are looking at it from a different perspective than maybe a television camera is.
Well, that's the word from NASCAR, and they certainly do have the last word in competition here in the Winston.
Well, Darrell Waltrip said it philosophically, but NASCAR has said it officially now. The race is official. The $200,000 belongs to Rusty Wallace. Now, just a final update on Kyle Petty, who was involved in that accident earlier on. He's been taken to Memorial Hospital in Charlotte. They've x-rayed him. The x-rays are negative, no brakes. But they'll keep him overnight for observation, but he should be just fine. So that's the story from here at Charlotte. Let's go up to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Last day of qualifying, and Sam Posey.
Winston, and Rusty Wallace has won it a little bit controversially, though.
Yeah, you know, it's just this 10 laps is a rough 10 laps, man. You got to drive hard. Darrell was driving hard. I was driving hard. I got up underneath him coming off of turn 4. We just got together. He come down. I tried to help my groove. We both just touched. That's all there was to it. You know, I would have rather finished the race, me winning it, and nothing like that happening. But, you know, it happened this way in '87, and I don't think those guys were doing that on purpose either. And I didn't have nothing to do with doing that on purpose. It was a tough race. I'm sorry.
They get a rope.
These guys were doing that on purpose either. And I didn't have nothing to do with doing that on purpose. It was a tough race. Tough race. Tough race. Tough race.
That story.
Well, a lot of emotions here in the time. And Darrell, one of them was anger when you guys got back here. What happened those last couple laps?
Car got I was a little bit loose in 3 and 4, and I guess Rusty saw that. So coming down to get the white flag, he just drove in under me up there and just turned me around. It didn't take a lot, but you know, with some people, you know how they are. So if you open the door, I guess you get what I guess you can expect. Something like that. It was uncalled for. I could never race. I could never walk through this garage area having done that to someone, but some people can, and more power to them, I guess.
Darrell, after the race, there was an altercation outside of Victory Lane of both of the crews getting together a little bit. What are your feelings about that?
Well, the emotion's high. You know, this is a show, and it's sort of like the animals are getting a little tense right there at the end of the show, and one of them might bite you. So the tension was high. It was totally uncalled for out there. And the thing that I'm most upset about is NASCAR, first of all, not putting me back in the lead because they went back to the last green flag lap, they said. I was leading that lap. Second of all, that they don't put a stop to something like that. That's the two things I think are so wrong. And I guess, you know, we'll have to live with all that stuff. I guess everybody got what they paid for today.
Darrell, rumored is that Rick Hendrick may protest the finish because of the rules.
The animals are getting a little tense right there at the end of the show, and one of them might bite you. So the tension was high. It was totally uncalled for out there. And the thing that I'm most upset about is NASCAR, first of all, not putting me back in the lead. The animals are getting a little tense right there at the end of the show, and one of them might bite you. So the tension was high. It was totally uncalled for out there. And the thing that I'm most upset about is NASCAR, first of all, not putting me back in the lead because they went back to the last green flag lap, they said. I was leading that lap. Second of all, that they don't put a stop to something like that. That's the two things I think are so wrong. And I guess, you know, we'll have to live with all that stuff. I guess everybody got what they paid for today.
Darrell, rumored is that Rick Hendrick may protest the finish because of the rules, stating that you should have been back up front.
Yeah.
That backed
Yep.
up the engine. Woo.
I don't know.
Possible protest.
We're here on the roof. We don't know anything.
Yeah, I'm checking right now with NASCAR. This is Jerry.
Ned, are you telling me that you have those 2 comments butt edited now, leading with Wallace? No one it's going to be. It's going to be right after the sun comes out from behind that cloud. Yeah, that's right.
They don't need us anyway.
Protesting. He is not going to protest. He is not going to protest. He said what NASCAR explained to him is that the car that spun goes to the rear, and that's the situation. So that's why Wallace stayed up front.
And I'm here with Les. He said, yeah, there was no protest. The finish stands as is, and they will discuss the altercation and what has to be done punitively there this week when they review what film they have.
I copy it all. Thank you.
How many lack, Larry?
Sun's back up, Paul.
Let's do it. Tape it. Might work. You never know. They know it. They don't care. They got to get their tape lined up. Yeah, yeah. Okay. This is Paul Page back at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The stands are empty now, but boy, the fans are going out of here talking about the controversy of the 1989 Winston. The situation was at the conclusion of the 8th lap of the final run. Darrell Waltrip was leading. Rusty Wallace was closing. Wallace closed right up behind Waltrip, coming off of the 4th turn, finishing the 8th lap, and then the cars touched. Waltrip went spinning down across the infield, and Wallace continued on. Now, Waltrip was able to restart, but he lined up at the back of the field for the restart, and as a result, Wallace was able to go on to the victory. After the race, both those men had a lot to say.
I'm Jack Arute here in Victory Lane at the end of the Winston, and Rusty Wallace has won it a little bit controversially, though.
Yeah, you know, it's just this 10 laps is a rough 10 laps, man. You got to drive hard. Darrell was driving hard. I was driving hard. I got up underneath him coming off at turn 4. We just got together. He come down. I tried to help my groove. We both just touched. That's all there was to it. You know, I would have rather finished the race, me winning it, and nothing like that happening. But, you know, it happened this way in '87, and I don't think those guys were doing that on purpose either. And I didn't have nothing to do with doing that on purpose. It was a tough race.
The tension was high. That was totally uncalled for out there. And the thing that I'm most upset about is NASCAR, first of all, not putting me back in the lead because they went back to the last green flag lap, they said. I was leading that lap. Second of all, that they don't put a stop to something like that. That's the two things I think are so wrong. And I guess, you know, we'll have to live with all that stuff. I guess everybody got what they paid for today.
Well, at first there was talk of a protest, but no protest will be filed. The race is official and it stands, and Rusty Wallace is $240,000 richer. Kyle Petty, well, he'll spend the night Memorial Hospital in Charlotte, but no breaks as a result of his accident here at Charlotte today. They say he's going to be fine. Now, let's go back to Phoenix. Just as long as you got that helicopter tied to the ground. Tell me what we're going to do here, Ned. Okay. Yeah, they... Try it. I'll start with Wallace. Then I'll talk about Waltrip. And then that's pretty much it. Are you gonna try to roll any of that tape into the box? Okay. What? Am I identifying myself at the head? going to give me Wallace first, huh? Am I throwing anywhere at the end of this? Nat, am I going anywhere at the end of this or just putting a period on it? I'll lead to it. Okay. Ned, I have a question for you, start. I'm starting with my name. I'm just putting a period on the end, right? Yeah. Just wanted to be clear. Okay. I'm Paul Page in Charlotte, where the Winston is over and Rusty Wallace has won, but the controversy will go on for some... I'm Paul Page in Charlotte, where the Winston is over and Rusty Wallace is the winner, but the controversy will go on for some time. With just 2 laps to go, Wallace was in second place to the race leader, Darrell Waltrip. He tapped Waltrip's bumper and sent Waltrip spinning. Wallace went on to win the $240,000 first prize. How am I on? This time, let's just do it.
I'm Paul Page in Charlotte, where the Winston is over. Rusty Wallace is the winner, but the controversy will go on for some time. With just 2 laps to go, Darrell Waltrip was leading. Wallace was in second place and tapped Waltrip's bumper, sending him spinning. Wallace went on to win, and for that feat, he is now $240,000 richer. This is Paul Page back at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The stands are empty now, but boy, the fans are going out of here talking about the controversy of the 1989 Winston. The situation was at the conclusion of the 8th lap of the final run. Darrell Waltrip was leading. Rusty Wallace was closing. Wallace closed right up behind Waltrip, coming off of the 4th turn, finishing the 8th lap, and then the cars touched. Waltrip went spinning down across the infield, and Wallace continued on. Now, Waltrip was able to restart, but he lined up at the back of the field for the restart, and as a result, Wallace was able to go on to the victory. After the race, both those men had a lot to say.
I'm Jack Arute here in Victory Lane at the end of the Winston, and Rusty Wallace has won it a little bit controversially, though.
Yeah, you know, it's just this 10 laps is a rough 10 laps, man. You got to drive hard. Darrell was driving hard. I was driving hard. I got up underneath him coming off of turn 4. We just got together. He come down. I tried to help my groove. We both just touched. That's all there was to it. You know, I would have rather finished the race, me winning it, and nothing like that happening. But, you know, it happened this way in '87, and I don't think those guys were doing that on purpose either. And I didn't have nothing to do with doing that on purpose. It was a tough race.
The tension was high. It was totally uncalled for out there. And the thing that I'm most upset about is NASCAR, first of all, not putting me back in the lead because they went back to the last green flag lap, they said. I was leading that lap. Second of all, that they don't put a stop to something like that. That's the 2 things I think are so wrong. And I guess, you know, we'll have to live with all that stuff. I guess everybody got what they paid for today.
Well, at first there was talk of a protest, but no protest will be filed. The race is official and it stands, and Rusty Wallace is $240,000 richer. Kyle Petty, well, he'll spend the night Memorial Hospital in Charlotte, but no breaks as a result of his accident here at Charlotte today. They say he's going to be fine. Now, let's go back to Phoenix. I'm Paul Page in Charlotte, where the Winston is over. Rusty Wallace is the winner, but the controversy will go on for some time. With just 2 laps to go, Darrell Waltrip was leading. Wallace was in second place and tapped Waltrip's bumper, sending him spinning. Wallace went on to win, and for that feat, he is now $240,000 richer.
Bad guy. I'm not going to say nothing bad about Darrell because Darrell didn't do nothing wrong. Darrell was trying to win the race, and he was just a victim of going for the checkered flag and the money waving, and that's all there was to it. I thought that I could sneak up underneath him. My car, I was wide open through turn 3 and 4. My car was pushing out from underneath me. I just kept the wheels turning and the throttle running, and that's the reason you see me fly up on him so abruptly. It's just that I thought by the time I get to him, I could get alongside him. I got up under his quarter panel, and then we just ran out of time, and that was it.
Will what happened today affect next Sunday's 600? Will time heal those wounds in less than a week?
It's doubtful. Like I say, I don't have a gripe. He's got the gripe. He's got a good reason to have a gripe. But I'm sure, knowing NASCAR, and I agree with him, I guess I'd have to do the same thing. They'll set us both down probably on Tuesday when we show back up here at Charlotte Motor Speedway for a practice for the World 600. And talk to us and let us know what happened. Just the same thing they did with Jeff Bodine and I believe it was Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt back then.
I think Chip said that there's no action, and that's that. So there's no action. Anybody else? Who's next? Mr. Moses. Did you think twice when Darrell started to go around and think, man, I really don't want to win it this way?
Yeah, I really did. You know, I thought that maybe, that's the reason I backed out of the gas. I thought maybe he'd slide and try to gather it back up. And he did try to gather it back up. But like I said, that was the most treacherous part of the corner. Getting into turn 3 is the loosest part. And as you get in the center of the turn, your car loads. You get more bite. And when you pick the throttle back up, it transfers weight to the rear wheels, and you have better traction. But as you're exiting that turn, you're turning the wheels, and left rear tires getting very, very light. That's the most treacherous part of the corner, and that's where we had the problem. And that's the reason he went around so easy. But it was a tough one, man. That's about all I can say.
The bump didn't put you
No,
out?
there's nothing wrong with my car. In fact, after the race was over, I even got out of the car and went over and physically looked at the right front fender. I didn't even have one mark on my fender, so it was that light.
Last year in the 600, you said you were hoping to get close enough to Darrell just to put a bumper on him. Is that the deal today?
No, that's not the deal at all. In fact, after I made that statement to somebody, NASCAR sat me down at Dover, Delaware, and explained that if a statement like that was ever said again, that there'd be definite problems on me. So I understand the circumstances, and that was nothing to do, and you can just wash that.
From Darrell's point of view, was Darrell at a disadvantage being the leader going down off turn 4 to the start-finish line to finish that race?
I don't know. I know that I would have much rather been in the lead. I think that Darrell was at a little bit of a disadvantage because I think that he thought he had a faster car than I did after he won the second segment in a dominant fashion. What he didn't know is the big problem that I had, and that I could straighten the problem out. I think at that point, and like I said, getting back, the Winston, it's an awful tough race, and we choose all the winners and all the people that have drove and earned it and to get into Winston. And if you're going to enter this thing, you just better get ready because it's going to be a tough one. I mean, it's like running the whole 500-mile race with a shotgun to your head if you don't win.
Do you think Darrell was trying to protect his position and came down on you at all?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just a normal racing accident where I was underneath him, or getting underneath him right at the part of the corner where he was going to have to make a turn. We're both running fairly straight off the corner, and then the turn abruptly changes, as everybody can see, in turn 4, and that's where it happened. I was underneath him. He had to make a turn to come down, and he wasn't protecting anything. He was running his normal groove, but it was just at a point where he had a turn, and he didn't have much choice.
Brian Hoagland, let's see if we got any questions from the Winston Media Center in the infield. Do you have any, Brian?
Eddie, hold on 1 second.
Okay, we're going to stand by for the infield.
Question is, what is your reaction to have the 17 spun you, Rusty?
What would your reaction be had Darrell spun you and the positions were reversed?
Probably be the very same thing that Darrell's saying right now. When the tension's that high, like I said, when the tension's that high, a lot of things happening. And I don't know, I don't think I went crazy and did a lot of wild things when I got spun out in the middle of the race at North Wilkesboro by Darrell Waltrip. I just went ahead and finished the race.
Just so you'll know what Darrell did say on MRN, Darrell said, I just hope he chokes on that 200,000. That's all I can tell him. He knocked the hell out of me. Brian, do you have another one down there right now?
Yes, we do. Rusty, do you think you're becoming NASCAR's new bad boy?
Do you think you're becoming NASCAR's new bad boy?
No, I don't think there's nothing to that. I think it's just circumstances happening. And when you've got this much attention on a race and you get yourself involved in an altercation, you definitely get the finger pointed at you. Just like with all the rumor mill stuff was starting about what I was going to do for a career next year. I think the rumor ran ragged, and this is a good potential for something like that as far as my driving style will start running ragged again. And there's no fact to it. It's just that this was a hard race, and that's what happened. And I don't think when you run 500 miles, your adrenaline is not near as strong as it is when you got 10 laps to go. But I can tell you what, if you're running fifth, if there's 5 laps to go in the Daytona 500 or the World 600, your adrenaline's exactly the same. And you're probably going to see another finish like that.
Sam? You had several laps to think about this deal as you got closer to him, and did you ever think twice about trying to get by him, and maybe it'd be a little bit too tough for you?
Well, when they dropped the flag for the last 10 laps, what I wanted to do, I was hoping that when I started alongside him, I could beat him down to turn 1, because I could probably hold him off, and whenever you get a car up underneath you, it makes the aerodynamics of your car, if you put 2 cars side by side in a wind tunnel, like I've been at General Motors an awful lot, and the car on the inside entering the corner gets very, very unstable and very loose because there's no aerodynamic downforce coming off the side of the car to go to the rear spoiler to push it in the ground. I knew that if I could go down that corner side by side with Darrell, he'd have to get out of the throttle because he'd run out of air. His car would just get too loose to run there. So I figured the outside grid was a good advantage on the start. And I know that he couldn't go down underneath me going into turn 3. But I just wasn't counting on all that horsepower he had. He had a lot of motor. He didn't have no handling, but he had good motor.
Bob Kelly has a question to relay from Indianapolis. Would you explain your thoughts during that yellow flag period before it went green for the last time? Do you have any thoughts about Earnhardt and Schrader behind you?
Yeah, I sure did. You know, I didn't know what was going to happen there, and you can't never count out Dale Earnhardt. Kenny Schrader had an awful lot of horsepower. He had one of the same engines that Darrell Waltrip had, built by the same engine builders. They got a lot of power. Like I said, I think we got better handling, and we got good horsepower. But Dale Earnhardt's always lurking in the darkness, and usually he's the guy that's up front. He's trying to work his new Chevrolet out, and I believe that's going to be a real good car. It's just going to take a little bit of time, and Darrell Waltrip seemed to get it real quick. Yeah, I was concerned about everybody. I was a little concerned when I heard that maybe there was something said over the radio that Watt Schrader, that some of the Hendrick guys might have told Kenny to put a bumper to me in return. But I backed up and looked at Kenny, and Kenny assured me there was nothing to that.
Okay, Brian, you got one from the media center?
Yes, I do. Do you think this is what Winston is paying for, Rusty?
Do you think this is what Winston is paying for and putting this event on for?
I think Winston wanted to see a side-by-side race coming off of turn 4, 2 cars bumper to bumper, and 1 car beating another by a couple inches. I don't think they want to see crashing and spinning. And like I said earlier, that's not what was done intentionally. That's what happened. We both got together. And I'll tell you what, if everybody thought that was such a bad crash, I think that they ought to go look at the car. If Darrell said I'd knocked the hell out of him, so to speak, I don't think I've ever knocked the hell out of anybody and never got a scratch in my car. And that's what happened this afternoon. You're all welcome to go down and take a look at it. No. The tire was the only thing. Like I say, the 2 right side tires got reversed accidentally, which is the same compound, which is perfectly legal, but the sizing was way off, and that put me dramatically loose. entering the corner sideways into turn 1, have to run an abnormally high groove up in turn 3 and 4, just a bunch of crazy things. And when your car turns sideways, it really scrubs speed off her real bad. I don't mind driving a car sideways if you're, if you're getting down to the end of the race, and that's what you got to do to make a win, which I've done that a million times. But it was really hurting me in speed today.
Larry Woody. Do you have any plans to contact Darrell and talk with him about your standpoint of the situation?
No, not really. I think it'd be, it wouldn't make any sense for, he would probably be able to understand it too much, and I think I'd just let you guys let him read it in the paper tomorrow.
Anybody else? Yes. Last year there were some incidents or close racing of some sort here at Charlotte with Darrell. How do you describe your relationship with Darrell?
I got a great relationship with Darrell Waltrip and Rick Hendrick and all the Tide people, Jeff Hammond and his entire crew. And the last race, the National 500 you're talking about here, the last race, as everybody remembered, I hope, that I lost a cylinder in that race. I was running on 7 cylinders, and I would fly through the corner, but Darrell would catch me down the straightaways. And I guess if you want to talk about getting really knocked around, I got pushed clear down the front straightaway, knocked sideways in turn 1, and won that race dead broadside in turn 3 to bring it home to the start-finish line. They got knocked across the start-finish line. So I was able to hold on in the car and go. I think if the situation was reversed, we'd both have the same opinion. But if he's sitting right here, he'd probably be saying the same things I'm saying as I am right now. That's all I can say. I mean, I think we both would have equal views if the situation was reversed. But I don't want him to make me look like I'm the bad guy totally when I can go back and look at the North Wilkesboro spin that I got and all the real big wrap clear down the back straightaway and knock sideways in turn 3 and 4. That's racing. I got out. I didn't say nothing about it. I said he ran a great race. As soon as he got out of the car, he complained that I was 2 laps down, that the son of a gun never got his laps back. That's NASCAR's golden boy, blah, 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 and that's a bunch of crap.
Just so you'll remember, Darrell finished second to him, so that was the car he's talking about that was on his tail. Would you like to see more races of this format on the circuit?
I think one's about all I can stand. And this is about the best place to see it at. I think if I was going to change anything, I'd make it a 50, 30, and a 10. That first 75 is pretty doggone long, but I'll tell you what. When a company as great as R.J. Reynolds is putting $240,000 up, I'll run this place around backwards if they want me to.
Do we have anything else from Indianapolis right now, Bob? Okay. Any other questions here? Anybody else? Brian, do we have any in the media center?
We've got 2.
Okay, fire away.
First is, Rusty,
would you have been able to get by Darrell with a clean pass and won the race without, if he had no spun?
I never know. Just don't know. I got along. I was outrunning him so bad in turn 3 and 4, and he was driving his guts out to hold me back. I guess they have to say that I think I could. I think I could have. I just don't know.
Okay, Brian, what's your other question down there?
Third straight race at Charlotte Motor Speedway that Rusty and Darrell have filled it out for the win. Do you expect to repeat next 600?
Third straight race that you and Darrell have followed it out for the win. Do you expect 4 straight next Sunday?
I expect him to be right in there. I expect it's going to be a real controversial run again. I don't mean controversial. I think NASCAR is going to set us both down and try to calm us both down. I'm calm. He's the one that's going to have to get calmed down because he was the victim. But I won the 500, finished second to 600, and was second to 500 the year before. So like you said, 3 straight races, Darrell Waltrip, Rusty Wallace, back and forth. And I don't know why that happens, but I think I just love Charlotte Motor Speedway. It's always been a good track for me. I always got around it real good. I consider it my home track since I live fairly close to here, and it's just a neat place.
Brian, do you have any other questions down there? Okay, we have any questions here? Yes. Just before the last restart, it appeared that Kenny Schrader was giving you a little nudge. Did you feel him bump you?
Yeah, a little bit. That was just a little intimidation work. There's nothing to it. He was just playing, and I was playing too, and he was doing that, and when he threw his hand up, he stuck his hand up in the rearview mirror to help to let Dale Earnhardt know that we're getting ready to go. And as soon as he threw his arm up, I hit the gas, and he was sitting there sunk. So that's one thing as you do as a race driver. You got to look in front of you and behind you at the same time. And as I seen him throw his arm up, like, okay, let's get ready to go, that's when I took off. Knew he had his guard down then.
Any other questions up here? Okay, for the sake of the folks in Indy, they were not with us when we first began. I have a few announcements or details to pass along to them. First, on Kyle Petty's condition. Kyle is alert and conscious. He's been x-rayed. There are no fractures of his back or neck. Checking for internal bruises, he is complaining of shoulder pain. He's been transferred from University Memorial to Charlotte Memorial, where he'll be held overnight for observation. Details on this race. Time of race, 1 hour, 31 minutes, 25 seconds. 1 hour, 31 minutes, 25 seconds. Official margin of victory was .23. Average speed, 133.15. 8 lead changes among 5 drivers. There were 2 cautions. The first, Kyle Petty's accident, lap 5 through 11, for a total of 7 laps. The second was the spin off turn 4 by Darrell Waltrip. That didn't count as an official lap, but it was a caution period. Details on Rusty. He has 2 previous starts in the Winston. His best previous finish was a 5th. His previous earnings were $29,250. Combined with today's earnings of $240,000, Rusty has won $269,250 in 3 Winstons. That's it for us here. One other question from Indy. Would you remark about the tires and compounds Goodyear provided to you for today?
The Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, as far as I'm concerned, hit it right on with the tires. I was able to drive my car in a real abusive fashion, and the tire temperature stayed cool. There's absolutely no blisters whatsoever, and I feel very, very comfortable going into the World 600 knowing I can drive a car real aggressive and punish the tires and not be worried about a problem.
Anything else from up there, Bob? Okay, I guess that's it for us here. Anybody here have another question? Okay, well, thank you all. Thank you, Rusty.
Thank you.